call this meeting of the Board of Education for the School District of Baraboo to order for Monday, April 13th, 2015. With roll call, Mr. Cummings. Here. Mr. McNevin. Here. Mr. Gearing. Here. Mr. Mortimer. Here. Ms. Riley. Here. Mr. Bedrow. Here. And Bodak here. Continue with the pledge. The flag is hanging on the wall at the time. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I would entertain a motion for the approval of the minutes of the board meeting of March 30th, 2015 as printed.
I would make a motion to approve the minutes as printed with the exception of the last page, Director of Teaching and Learning. We should include a note that carried unanimously.
Okay.
That's the only thing.
Any other comments? Hearing none, those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Did we have a second?
Or addition? We have a second. Second by Mr. Bedrow. Any further discussion? Hearing none, those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion and minutes approved. Brings us to correspondence, of which I have none. I was not made aware of any other board members with correspondence, so that brings us to administrative correspondence. Dr. Witzenbaum.
We received an official letter from District Administration Magazine indicating that our award for District of Distinction was one of 49 out of hundreds of nominations, and I did bring the plaque tonight if anybody would like to take a look at that. Also wanted to highlight the newspaper article. Baraboo News and Annie did a good job of reporting on our groundbreaking ceremony, and on our website we have a short article with pictures, and if you have a lot of spare time you could also watch the videos of the ceremony. And finally, we did receive, and I forwarded a letter from Kevin Lowell regarding the art sculpture project, and that wasn't the last one. I had the pleasure of being the top 10 Badger Conference Scholar of the ceremony and award ceremony with Joe Wilson on Sunday. And I just wanted to recognize the 10 scholars from Baraboo: Jacqueline Kulata, Lana Honch, Hannah Lee, Douglas McDonald, Gabrielle Marks, Sydney Rabata, Rebecca Schrader, Hannah Shumway, Alyssa Zacco, and Carolyn Zimmerman. So congratulations to those students. And they represented our district well, so I'm very proud of them.
Thank you. Any additional administrative correspondence from any administrators?
That's it.
Hearing none brings us to the portion of the agenda entitled Public Viewpoints. Do we have anyone here for public viewpoints tonight? Yes, the microphone unfortunately is around the corner here, so if you could approach the microphone.
Is it on?
Yeah, it's recording.
Oh, okay. Basically, a couple of things I wanted to say in preference is that public schools are under attack, at least here in Wisconsin. But I don't think we want to really go there. I'm here because of two Baraboo Thunderbird sculptures I want to give Baraboo Public Schools, and I repeat, give. I did, on request, I did write up a little page that just basically briefly talked about 4 different areas. And last fall, I talked to a few different committees, and I know that the Building and Grounds Committee is very busy with all of the building that's going to go on, and I certainly don't want to make a problem with that. But again, this is a couple of sculptures that I was inspired to work on a maquette. About 11 months ago, I set up my studio in the front of the high school and worked on this maquette. Over 100 hours I was actually there. I think a lot of you came through there and expressed some real interest in the sculpture, the maquette that I produced. And I came and shared some more ideas with that. There were some concerns that I started to work on. And basically what seemed to happen, even as I was working on the concerns, the whole idea was just dropped. Now, in my letter, I talked about the fact that being a sculptor, I work in what's mostly an outside studio, so I really couldn't work on things during the winter. I have spent a lot of time in 6 different Baraboo schools as a substitute teacher, seeing somewhere between 1,000 and 2,000 kids. And oftentimes the question that I'm asked is, what's happening with the Baraboo Thunderbird sculpture idea? And I would like to just, address some of the concerns that they had. One of them was, how do we put this in a place that's not going to be accessible? The idea of putting it on a pedestal, I think, is a very good idea. It's one that I can certainly work with. It's always also been raised to me as far as other schools that have had sculptures, and just Googling that, I started coming up with hundreds upon hundreds and pages of pages, and I listed just a few of them. It's not a project that, in my mind, is going to go away. I have worked on the maquette. That's completed. I'm working on a second one, kind of working on some of the issues that I have with the sculpture. And there is a third one that will be created, and I've talked about wanting to have that at Al Berriman Elementary. Now, I know with public comments, that's all that they are, and I just appreciate the time that you listen to me, and be happy to appear again upon your request.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other public viewpoints? Any other public viewpoints? Any other public viewpoints? Hearing none, I'd entertain a motion from the board to move item number 6, reports, presentation by CESA 6, to under staff, student, and community recognition. In other words, we'll do staff, student, and community recognition next, and after that, before the continuous school improvement, we would do the report from CESA 6.
So moved to make that change.
Second.
Motion by Meering, seconded by Vedro. Any question or discussion? Hearing none, those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? Motion carried. That brings us then to staff, student, and community recognitions, and I will turn it over to Dr. Ritzenthaler for intro, or
Gonna
Ms.
hand it
Ms.
off
Miller.
to Lori.
I'm going to ask Ms. Meyer to come up here and Mr. Mayor to come up here with me. Recently, the district received notice from the Department of Workforce Development that we received a Blueprint for Prosperity Innovative School to Work grant. The grant is in the amount of $58,747. We've been working with a larger group than just the 3 of us here over the past 2 years, would you say? We've come together, members of Teal, Flambeau, Synergy, Baraboo, Tent and Awning, the city of Baraboo, CESA 5. Joel wanted to be here tonight too to help us out, but we got a big event at Teal tomorrow. But we came together because we wanted to talk about how can we prepare a great pipeline for skills into our area businesses. And this has been a really collaborative group where we're creating curriculum together, we're talking about needs and supporting each other with our various needs. We were asked to go down to Madison and do a presentation to get this grant, and we were a district that brought all of the partners to the table, including the mayor. And he did a nice emotional plea at the end to support our city. And so we're just really thrilled to be here tonight to tell you that this particular grant award will change the lives of 22 kids in this community. And those 22 kids, it's the intent that they get the skills that they needed, the certifications, that's what the majority of the money is going to, so that they can go directly into our businesses to work and have a career. So Kim Myers here from Teal, and we have Mr. Mayor here representing the city. But Landis Brozak has been a great partner through Synergy. Andy Moon at Baraboo, Tent and Awning, and who am I forgetting? Todd Spencer at Flambeau. So we've all been very involved with each other through this process. So, Peter.
There was a show on Wisconsin Public Radio this afternoon regarding the challenge of how to keep some of our young upcoming professionals in the state of Wisconsin instead of leaving. And one of the areas that was discussed was WEDAC, WEDC's corporation's funding of various kinds of projects And that is the one piece of good news that I heard coming through to the educational environment. And this certainly is the direction of the future. And thank you all so much for the work that you've done and the distinction that you've given our district.
Yeah, we'd like to recognize you guys, so thank you for coming tonight and continuing to partner with us. And I know Crystal has something she'd like to share. And I don't know, do either one of you want to comment on that?
Well, I guess, yeah, I could say a word or two. You know, this is the second year that we actually put an application in. Last year, we put one in, and, you know, the numbers were the numbers, and somebody's got to get it and somebody doesn't. We came up on the non-funded side of the equation. However, we did do a postmortem. We learned quite a bit. When we came in with our application this year, and I had the pleasure of going down to Madison to hear the board's comments as we were giving our interview, and they said it was by far just a tremendously well put together application. They were very, very impressed. So my kudos to everybody that had their fingers in the preparation of the actual grant request this year. I thought that it made our job easy going down. All we had to do was show up and talk about how very important it was to our community. But the application, I think, sold us before we even walked in the door, so thank you. Yep.
And just as a member of one of the employers that was part of this process, I just look forward to working on additional types of projects like this with our schools and with our youth. The more activities and more things that we can get involved with, we are absolutely available to do whatever needs to be done in the school district, so, on record, right? So thank you.
And I want to thank everybody, all you that are involved with it, and obviously, we're going to get to a part in our meeting where we're going to talk about our strategic plan. This is right at the top of our strategic plan process, working with the community and working with our partners to drive ahead and giving our students the opportunities they need, but to help our community too at the same instance.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right.
Next up on the agenda, although it's listed, comes as a surprise to many, including myself, as to who gets the recognition, so I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Ritzenthal.
Really hard to keep some secrets like this, but we nominated a member of our community for the Burt Grover Child Advocacy Award, and this is through the Wisconsin Association of School District Administrators. And although this individual was not selected for the one award recognition that they give out, I did receive a certificate of recognition from the statewide organization signed by John Bales, who's the executive director. And the nomination came from the Baraboo School District. Because of this member's efforts on behalf of the district with business education partnerships, this person is also an advocate for our youth through Boys and Girls Club, working as a mentor, making sure that they have a safe environment to work in, just on and on. So the nomination also comes from Boys and Girls Club, and so I'm very happy to present the certificate of recognition to Mayor Mike Palmer. And I want to say that I think what makes our business ed partnership somewhat unique, as we've traveled around the state doing our little road show together, is the fact that we have our local government so heavily involved supporting our school system and our youth within the community. So this is a well-deserved recognition, and we look forward to a long relationship with the city of Baraboo. Thank you.
It's not often that I'm speechless. However, Sean, I had no idea, and I really do appreciate it. You know, I just feel it's not only is it part of my job to make sure that we have the best community that we possibly can, but I do have, I got 4 daughters, and what was here when they were growing up compared to what we have today, with the schools, with the Boys and Girls Club is just light years ahead of what my children had. Their evenings were spent on the square, because that's about all we had. So I think it's really important that as we move forward, we keep our youth in our forefront, because they are the future of our community. So thank you very much. Appreciate it.
All right, thank you. Under reports, next, from CISA 6, we have Keith Fuchs with us, and I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Meering for a little intro, and he will turn it over to Mr. Fuchs for the evaluation presentation.
Yeah, as we've been moving forward in our policy committee, one of the things we are obviously looking at is our board evaluation process. And we've done a lot of reviewing and looking at the process, but then also trying to make sure that it's tied in with what we're doing with teacher effectiveness, principal effectiveness, and also our district administrator and how we evaluate that. And so one of the presentations we received when we went to the education convention was the CISA 6 effectiveness project. They call it DAPES, which is District Administrator Performance Evaluation System. But rather than explaining too much about it, I'll let our representative from CISA 6, Dr. Keith Fuchs, give an explanation of what that is and how possibly we could utilize that.
Okay. Thank you very much. As Doug said, my name is Keith Fuchs, and with me this evening is Cheryl Simonson. We would like to thank the board for your interest in learning more about the District Administrator Performance Evaluation System, or as we call it, DAPES, as well as the Central Office Performance Evaluation System, or COPES. We'd also like to thank Crystal and Lori for inviting us this evening and giving us the opportunity to provide you with that additional information. The District Administrator Performance Evaluation System that we have created in 2014, along with the Central Office Performance Evaluation System, is really established to help districts, and it is all districts, to create an evaluation system for both their district administrators and their central office administrators. A little bit about our background. I have 43 years in public education in the state of Wisconsin. I've served in just about every administrative position I think that you could hold, including having served as the superintendent of the Menasha School District. I retired from that position 5 years ago and then joined CISA 6, and since that time have been working primarily on the educator effectiveness project that CISA 6 developed. So, Cheryl?
Great. As Keith said, I'm Cheryl Simonson from CISA 6. I am the director of the Effectiveness Project and have been a partner with Keith since the inception of this design and this model at the agency. So we are thrilled that you've asked us in to share a little bit more about our systemic approach to evaluation within a district.
Our purpose this evening is to give you a sense of why you might want to consider implementing the DAPES and the COPE system, somewhat of a timeline for the training and the implementation of the system, the various training models that we have developed, with the understanding, of course, that especially when you're dealing with DAPES, you're dealing with the need to train boards of education who are not necessarily always involved to the level that your educators are. And then, of course, the cost of the training for both the DAPES and the COPES. What we'd like to do, first of all, for those of you that have a folder, is just very quickly run through the folder contents. On your right-hand side, you're going to see the PowerPoint that you're going to be looking at tonight. Then beneath that is a document that's entitled The Roadmap for Board Leadership for Educator Effectiveness. And one of the things that we truly believe is important as you look at engaging in an evaluation system for the superintendent is that you, as a board of education, are involved in trying to help that superintendent to be successful. So you have the board survey, which we'll talk about as we go through it. You also have in there 3 sheets that speak to the benefits of engaging in the DAPES and the COPE system, and hopefully you get a chance to take a look at that at some point in time. And then on the left-hand side for the about 3 documents down, you're going to see a little document that's entitled District Administrative Performance Evaluation System Scoreboard. Are you Batman's Robin or Superman's Kryptonite? So that's a document that we would like you to read when you have an opportunity as well.
I will actually refer to the COPS or the central office documents as we roll through, and I have an opportunity to speak a little bit about them to you later on in the presentation. So we have a lot of goodies inside your folder that I'll be referencing as we walk through our time together.
One note that we should make is that even though you're a district who is presently using the DPI model for educator effectiveness with your teachers and your building administrators, this system, the DAPES and the COPS, is able to be used with either the state model or the CESA 6 effectiveness project. And we're able to do that because we really have developed this more as a paper and pencil evaluation system as opposed to the necessity for you to have a data management system in order to function. And as you get into this more, and if you decide to go through the training, you'll get a much better feel for that as we get you trained in implementing the system. The Wisconsin Educator Effectiveness System was the result of Wisconsin Act 166, which occurred in about 2012. At that point in time, the DPI was responsible for developing evaluation systems for teachers and principals, and all of you have been engaged in that for a couple of years now. In that model, the system was developed so that your evaluation of your teachers and your principals will be based on practice of teaching and administration, but also for the very first time in Wisconsin, on the product. And so that system is relatively new to the state of Wisconsin. In developing the DAPES and the COPS, we have followed that same model with about 50% of the evaluation for district administrator and central administrators based on the practice, and 50% based on student achievement or the product. Our CESA 6 effectiveness project actually began in about 2010. And at that time, the goal of the CESA 6 effectiveness project was to improve student learning by enhancing the effectiveness of all educators and providing each school district with an effective teacher in every classroom, an effective administrator in every school, an effective leader or leaders, and that's where the district administrator, central office administrator system comes into play in every district, and an effective educational system in every community. As we have moved forward with the DAPES and the COPS, that continues to be our goal. We have had about 188 Wisconsin educators who have been involved in the design of the 5 systems that make up the Educator Effectiveness Project. Under the guidance and facilitation of Dr. James Strong, we developed these 5 different systems that make up the Effectiveness Project. You can see there that there are about 34 educators who participated in the development of the central office performance evaluation system, with 24 of those actually being central office administrators. And for the DAPES, we had 36 different educators who were involved in that process, with 20 of them being district administrators. One of the questions you might have is, why would we implement the CESA 6 COPS and DAPES, given that there is no requirement in the state that you have an evaluation system actually developed, at least DPI hasn't required that. You have an evaluation system developed for central administration officers or district administrators. And so as we look at this, your question is, why would we do this? We maybe have our own system in place. Why would we look to implement, get trained in and implement the COPS and DAPES from CESA 6? One of the things that we strongly believe is that it is so important for your central office administrators and your district administrator to serve as leaders within the district. If you're going to be leading the district, it's important that you walk a similar path towards accountability and responsibility as you are expecting of your teachers and your principals. And so your ability as a board to engage with your district administrator and your central office administrators in the process of evaluation is an example of your leadership, showing your teachers and your building principals that you are walking that same path, that your actions are reflecting your leadership in this process. Ken Kesey says you don't lead by pointing and telling people someplace to go. You lead by going to that place and making a case for it. And in this case, it's important for you to walk your talk as you move forward and provide leadership in the development of your evaluation system. And John Maxwell says a leader is one who knows the way, goes the way, and shows the way. As a district that's looking to move educator effectiveness forward, if you want your central administrators and your district administrator to lead this process, they must be able to know the way, go the way, and show the way. Also, as a board, please be aware that although the DPI has not required you to create an evaluation system for your district administrator and your central office administrators, there is the need, according to Wisconsin State Statute 121.02(1) that each school board is required to evaluate in writing all certified school personnel in the first year of their employment within the district, and at least every 3 years, every 3 years thereafter. We also believe very firmly that the best way to achieve educator effectiveness and ultimately student achievement improvement is to engage in a systemic approach where all of your certified educators are held accountable and responsible to enhance their educator effectiveness so that ultimately you can improve student achievement. So at CESA 6, we did develop a 5-tiered system, and we have systems for classroom teachers, educational specialists, school administrators, and in 2014, the development of the central office administration evaluation system and the district administrator evaluation system. So that in our system, we basically have an evaluation system which holds all certified administrators accountable and responsible for a set of research-based standards. Each of those standards, we believe, sets of standards are comprehensive, concise, well-articulated, transparent, easily understood, efficiently implemented, and structurally consistent, with each of those systems consisting of 6 standards that are being used to evaluate the particular position. As you note there, central office administrators and district administrators have 6 standards, just as do the teachers, educational specialists, and school administrators. We believe that it's important that each individual educator has an opportunity to fully understand what is expected of him or her in the evaluation process. And so we feel that with 6 standards, you can get your arms around that to a far greater degree than you can if you have multiple standards.
Okay, thank you, Keith. Actually, if you could just back up one slide. I want to have you on the right-hand side of your folder. If you do have your PowerPoint out, it would be 1, 2, 3. It's the 4th and 5th document inside your folder. It looks like this. We fondly refer to these as the tiers within the effectiveness project. So if you take out the 4th document and the 5th document, which actually are the standards side by side. And if you take the tiers and you line it up like this, you now have the tiers within our system and the standards. And the nice thing about the colored graphic is it shows you all of the components within each one of the evaluation systems within the effectiveness project. So the central office is green and the district administrator is blue. And it chunks out the pieces within that system to include self-assessment, observation, a documentation law, which is basically an online portfolio for the professional to house evidence to show proficiency of meeting the standards, surveys, reports, goals, and outcome measures. So this kind of is a nice visual that synthesizes what each one of these tiers within the model actually looks like, sounds like, and feels like along with the standards, okay? So that is just a little overview for you regarding that. Central office administration. The performance standards for the central office administration really focus on the leadership aspect and moving the whole organization forward. So it supports the vision, mission, and goals of the superintendent and the district as a whole, planning and analyzing, as well as the HR or human resource aspect of central office positions, organizational management, community and community relations and communications. I've heard that loud and clear since I walked in here, and it was just a wonderful way to set the tone for a meeting. And I just was really impressed with your school district and just being a stranger walking in it and seeing the relationships that you have within your community. So kudos to you. Last but not least is professionalism. So I want to make sure that you have a good understanding of what does that mean. Well, what we did was we identified typical professional categories within central office. And we have standards and what we call indicators or look-fors that help describe the standard roles and responsibilities within the standard for business, directors of instruction or your curriculum and instructional people, your facilities managers or supervisors or directors, your human resources, special ed and pupil services, as well as technology directors as well. And to get a better view of what that actually looks like would be this document inside your folder on the right-hand side. I believe it's the 6th document in. If not, you can recognize it by the yellow headers, yellow and blue headers. And what this is it's actually the standard in all of the indicators for each one of those positions. So if you want to take a look at the similarities and differences of roles and responsibilities as identified within our model, this would be the document for you to take a look at. District administrator.
When we look at the district administrator system, we also have 6 standards. Those standards are strategic leadership, instructional leadership, human resources leadership, operations and resource management, communication and community relationships, and professionalism. A similar set of standards to what we've just seen with the central administrator, but each is specific to the role of that particular individual. When the design team worked on developing the standards for the district administrator performance evaluation system, they looked at what do good superintendents do. They did a tremendous amount of research and looked at the research around that. And what they found, of course, is that superintendents do a whole lot of things. That there's a tremendous amount of responsibilities that your superintendent, your district administrator has. As we went through those responsibilities, we were able to categorize those responsibilities into these 6 different standards. And so these became the standards that are used to evaluate your district administrator. As with all of the 5 systems that are part of the CESA 6 effectiveness project, they have the 6 standards. But they also have indicators that are used to explain essentially what that particular standard is. We kind of call them look-fors, or things that you would look for as you're looking to evaluate that superintendent to each of those standards. They also have appraisal rubrics that are specific to that particular standard to help the board in this particular case, or whoever's evaluating your central office administrators, to evaluate using that set of rubrics. As you can see here, here's standard 1, strategic leadership, and underneath it is a set of 7 different performance indicators. The purpose of the way we have created, I should say, the standards, in this case strategic leadership, and this other 5 standards, is to create a set of research-based performance standards We really believe that we have created a system that provides a balance between both the structure and the flexibility and defines a common purposes and expectations, not only for the superintendent, but also expectations that the board would have of the superintendent. This really helps to guide leadership within the district and make sure that the board and the superintendent are on the same page as they move forward with the expectations being placed upon your superintendent. As far as the indicators are concerned, the list of indicators that we create are not exhaustive. They're not intended to be prescriptive, and they're certainly not intended to be a checklist to be used to evaluate your superintendent. They are used as examples of what good superintendents would do in relationship to fulfilling that particular standard. They also are indicators used to clarify the job expectations, so that as a superintendent who looks at each of the standards, by looking at those indicators, you can get a pretty good idea of what it is that you're responsible for. And for board members, by establishing those indicators, you're basically establishing an outline for what you're looking for your superintendent to do. One of the things that's a good feature of the DAVE system as well as the COPE system is the ability for a district to look at those indicators and say, but in our district, we think this is really important in relationship to strategic leadership. And you have the ability to add additional indicators or expectations into the system that you actually create specific to your own district. The appraisal rubrics, as we said, the appraisal rubrics are all built specifically to each of the standards, so that when you're looking at strategic leadership, when you look at that appraisal rubric in which you're identifying your administrator as either distinguished, effective, developing, or unacceptable, those definitions below each of those terms is specific to that particular standard. So in looking at the six different standards, you will see that rubric specific to that particular standard. The other thing that you will note is that the definition below effective is actually the definition or the description of the standard itself, because that's really the starting point that we're looking for as we look at our superintendents. The DAPES and COPES will provide a procedure for conducting performance reviews that we believe stresses both accountability and promotes professional improvement. We're not looking at this system as simply an evaluation system. We're looking at it as a professional development system as well, so that when you are working with a superintendent, you're not only evaluating, you're also identifying ways that that particular superintendent, or in the case of central administrators, can improve and show growth and improvement. They also increase the district administrators, superintendents, central office administrators' involvement in the evaluation system. This is not a system that is done to somebody, it is a system that is done with somebody. In COPES, the central administrator will work with the district administrator, district staff, and other stakeholders to accomplish his or her performance standards. So it's really a team effort to help that particular administrator be successful. In the case of the district administrator performance standards, it's the same process, with the district administrator working with the school board, the staff, and other stakeholders to make sure that, in your case, that she is able to succeed in fulfilling each of those standards. Also, our system is not observation model purely. It is a system that really looks beyond observation, and as Cheryl indicated, uses multiple measures, or what we call a preponderance of evidence, to evaluate both the practice of the administrator and the product. Again, practice is good, but really the bottom line is, what's the product? What are we achieving with our students? How much improvement have we made in student achievement? And this opportunity to use both practice and product to evaluate your administrator, I think, is extremely important. The other piece of that is, you will notice as we go into this that with both the COPES and the DAPES, there are a multitude of different measures that can be used, and that's what comes together in that preponderance of evidence. So you have much evidence as you look at each of those standards to make your determination where it is. And in both cases, you can see it's both the person being evaluated and the person or group doing the evaluation that really is a partnership in this entire process. Although we have a 5-tiered system, and you can see the 5 tiers here, we truly believe that there is a piece that's missing. And that piece, we believe, is Board of Education leadership for educator effectiveness. We believe that the board's leadership in the effectiveness project is integral to the success of the entire effectiveness model in all of our districts. We believe this because we think that the school board is the key to that success for the educator effectiveness system. And we also believe that excellence in the classroom begins with excellence in the boardroom. So we have created a system that really provides an opportunity for the district administrator and the board to work in partnership, identifying what it is that we want the district administrator to accomplish, and then the board working hand in hand with that district administrator to move that system forward. We have achieved this concept of getting the board actively involved in this process by taking a look at the work of school boards, the key work of school boards, and the 6 standards that make up the district administrative performance evaluation system. And we have aligned the key action areas, the 8 key action areas of the key work of school boards to the 6 state standards. And we've looked at, in those key action areas, those 8 areas, what is the role of the school board and how does that align to what needs to happen for that district administrator to succeed in the 6 standards. As a result of that, we have created what we call a roadmap for board leadership for educator effectiveness. And this roadmap, this survey that you as board members will take, will serve as a foundation and will allow us, as we work with you, to customize your training to your needs based off of the results from this survey. In your folder, you can see the hard copy of the survey that we would ask each board member to take prior to the time that you would be involved in the training. You will notice that the survey is divided into the 6 state standards, and under each of those standards is a series of practices that the board could engage in an effort to assist the superintendent to be successful in relationship to that particular standard. There are 44 different practices spread across those 6 different standards that are developed. And as you look at them, we're asking the board, and we're doing this in Survey Monkey so that there's confidentiality, but we're asking the board, when you take this survey, to identify the frequency with which you believe you engage in that particular practice in your district. And again, this is not a means of evaluating the board, it's a means of identifying practices that the board can or could engage in with the superintendent to help that superintendent be successful in relationship to each one of the standards. The survey, as we develop it, the result of it will come back so that it is a survey of the whole. Each individual board member's responses will not be identified, but the survey will come back with a result of the survey of the whole. The bottom line for this is that what we're trying to do is to help the board become more actively engaged in the educator effectiveness system and to provide leadership to all of your certified staff in order to effectively enhance the effectiveness of each educator and ultimately to improve student achievement. Also with this system, we're going to take a look at the level of understanding, commitment, and engagement in relationship to the 8 action areas of the key work of school boards and that relationship to the 6 state standards. From that, we believe that by analyzing that, we'll have an opportunity to determine if there are, of those 8, if there's an area or 2 that you may want to take a more serious look at as you move forward. We're going to be, a week from Saturday, we're going to be training up in Southern Door with the Southern Door Board of Education. They have gone through this process of taking the survey already. And the result of it is, in one particular case, looking at accountability, for example, there were a series of responses that board members don't know. They just didn't know what that meant, basically. So that's an area, for at least the Southern your board that we're gonna take a look at and say, is this an area that you need to take a closer look at? How can we assist you? Can WASB be part of that process? But overall, trying to give you a much better understanding of how those 8 key action areas fit into your role as a Board of Education in helping educator effectiveness. The district administrator and central office performance evaluation systems, we believe at least, have extensive benefits for not only district administrator and central office administrators, but also for the school board and the district as a whole. And you have a couple of sheets that lay out some of those various benefits. Now, there are probably some questions that you have about DAPES and COPES, especially regarding the training and the cost of it. You might want to know, well, what if we just want to, start with the DAPES and not the COPES? Can we do that? How do we go about getting our Board of Education and our superintendent trained in the model? Or how do we go about getting our district administrators, our central office administrators trained in this process? And of course, what's the cost of the process? To begin with, you have the option to select and implement both DAPES and COPES or either of these evaluation professional growth systems. We have a number of districts that we're working with right now that Cheryl's group is training in the COPES area, and then they'll look at, once they get that in place, then they'll look to move forward with the DAPES. We have others who are diving into both of them immediately. We also recognize that there are districts such as yours that are using the DPI model for your teachers and your principals. And so as we train you with regard to the central administrators and district administrators and the Board of Education, we'll make sure that you at least have a pretty good sense of the history behind our model as we get into the training. But essentially, that will not be a deterrent in any shape or form as we move you forward to implement this system. We also have a couple of goals as we move forward with the COPES and the DAPES, and one of them is inter-rater reliability. We want to make sure that there's a consistency in the rating by each person that's involved with that there's a fidelity, that you have a system in place, that you use that statement made down at the local gas station is not the determining factor for the evaluation of a superintendent, but that rather you are looking at a system of research-based standards that you're using as your foundation. And then a consistency again, especially as we look at central administrators, that making sure that there's a consistency in the process that is used for evaluating.
The training for COPES really focuses on both the evaluator and the evaluatee. So if you have the responsibility for evaluating any of the professional categories in the COPES, then you would be the audience for training. We have a lot of districts that have the person being evaluated, which we refer to as evaluatee, come to the training as well. Again, it's a collaborative endeavor, and it really helps spark some really rich conversation around roles and responsibilities and how to best move forward in a partnership. We have a lot of different training options for you, as well as online training modules as you move forward. The platform for COPES is My Learning Plan Oasis. You can choose to use that particular webware to support your evaluation system for central office, or not. It's totally up to you. But we can get you set up easy breezy, and it's a pretty slick system once you're up and running. Costs are as follows. There's a one-time training fee, and it's listed per person, if you will. And we do hold regional trainings by CISA, so Julie Dretzky at CISA 5 would be holding a training, or you could also look on the statewide calendar if there's a bordering CISA that would be more conducive to your schedules. The other option is to give Julie a call to see if she can come into your school district and train you in district as well. So pretty much whatever works for you will work for us moving forward. And again, the one-time training fee. If you do choose to use My Learning Plan, there's a one-time configuration fee of $1,500. Okay? And then it's $100 per user. So you have a one-time training fee. And the more people you have trained, the cheaper it is. And a one-time configuration fee for My Learning Plan Oasis. If you are not an EP district, then it's $100 per user. So whoever would be using the webware or the paper pencil model would be $100. Those are the fees. Okay. And that's what I just said right there, synthesized all right there. Just as a little FYI, in your folders on the left-hand side, the very first document that looks like this is a nice summary of the information that we just shared. This is my elevator speech in a document, down and dirty. If you want to know what we just went through, this is it in one handout, okay? So you might want to take a look at it. The costs are on the inside. The tiers are here, okay? As well as any other information and contact information is on the back. So if you want some follow-up with Keith or I, our contact information is on the back here, okay? The other piece that I wanted to share with you is the very last document on the right-hand side. If you are interested in My Learning Plan or just want an idea of what does that look like, what does the webware look like, the very last set of documents on the right-hand side is actually from our demo site. We did a mock-up of a technology director, and you can just see what a couple of forms would look like. Obviously, hard copy, you PDF'd and printed them off, but if you're just curious about what My Learning Plan might look like, that would give you an example of that. I think you're up next, Keith. Yeah.
In regard to the DATES training models, we originally had 4 different models. We had the Model 1, which is the in-district full-day board work session, where we come in and work with you in your district for a day, usually about 7.5 to 8 hours, to make sure you're ready to implement the system. The second model is a 2.5 day board work session.
What are most of the school districts doing?
Excuse me?
What are most school districts doing at this point?
We're working with Southern Door, Menominee Falls, Wauwatosa, Elkhart Lake.
Are they doing single or 2 days?
Varies. Menominee Falls, for example, is doing 2 half-days. Elkhart Lake did a 1 day. Southern Door is doing a 1 day. Nakusa did a 1 day, which is turning into 2 half-days because they went a little longer. But I think probably the one thing about the system is I think you can do this as you as a board choose to do. Menominee Falls, for example, we came in for 3.5 hours on a Monday night, and we did the first half of the session, and now we're going to go back and do another 3.5 hour session with them. In the case of Nakusa, Elkhart Lake, they brought them in for a 1 day session. The bottom line is, when you get trained, you're not going to remember everything you learned. But we I think have addressed that, and I'll explain that in just a minute. There was a third model in there that was a regional model, and we had talked about bringing in multiple districts into a regional training and having that model used. We have since gotten rid of that, because what we found is that when we talk to districts, they want to make sure that the message is very clear, that all of their board members hear the same message, that they can all be there at the same time, and that we are really looking to customize that training to that particular district. In the case of those districts that we come in and work with, we'll get information from your superintendent on your goals, your job description, what it is that you're doing right now. You're talking about strategic planning tonight. We'll want to know about that so that we can really develop the system specific to your particular needs as a district and give you a sense of how the system fits in with what you're doing. The third model that we now have, because we've dropped the regional models, is a customized in-district training. We have some districts who have said, we want you to come in for 2 hours, four different times. And we'll start our board meeting at 5 o'clock and we'll go for 2 hours, then the next month we'll do the same type of thing. So there's some customization that's available. That's really your choice. The nice thing about this whole model is we come to you when you want us here. This is basically the cost for the dates. There's for the Model 1 full day in district, there's a one-time training cost of $2,800. For Model 2, which is the 2 half-days, $3,800. And for Model 3, that should be determined based on what you actually decide that you want to do. There's also a $500 annual cost for licensing fee, which includes updates on the system. But also, one of the things I think that's really important is we also provide a series of 7 online learning modules. And these 7 online learning modules essentially cover the training. And they're built so that if you, let's say that we come in and train your district in May. Well, it gets to be July and August and everything else is going on. You understand you have a few things that will be going on about that time of year. So you're going to be involved with a lot of things. And you go, oh, we're supposed to do something with the DAPES training. At that point in time, you will have learning modules. You actually can go back and take a look and say, okay, what do we have to do, when and where? And that will be available to you. The other thing is possibility next April, there's an election and a new board member comes on. Rather than having to send that board member to someplace, we can provide the online training modules so that that person can walk through and get a pretty good sense of the system right there. The other thing is that we will provide a liaison for your support. Whoever comes in and does your training will most likely be your liaison. So if you have questions about it, that person will be available. But also, that person will be in contact with you to say, okay, it's now September. Here's some of the things you need to be thinking about doing as you move forward. They'll be in contact with both the board and the superintendent to make sure that the steps of the process are being fulfilled as you go throughout the year. And really will follow very closely with you, especially as you get near the end of that first year and you now have to do your first evaluation. That becomes so important that you have a good sense of what it is you're looking to do, and that liaison will support you and walk you through that particular process. Overall, both the DAPES and the COPES, we hope will improve student achievement by enhancing educator effectiveness. So with DAPES and the COPES, we believe that we can be partners in this process to help the Baraboo School District become the best educational community that they can be. So, as Cheryl said, both of us are available to contact regarding the DAPES and the COPES, and then Cheryl Malaha, who sits in the middle of us and kind of oversees us, is also available if you need to have somebody that can talk to kind of both of the systems. So, questions that you might have?
How many school districts are you doing this with now?
We have 180-some school districts using the educator effectiveness system.
What I'm talking about.
DAPES right now.
Yeah.
We probably have about a dozen or so districts who are beginning to implement it. We believe that as we get into the start of the next school year, we're going to have a significantly larger number. The bottom line, as we've heard up to this point in time, is let us get our teachers and building principals systems in place first, and then we're going to move to the COPES and the DAPES. In the case of the COPES, I think they have about 25 different districts who are using that right now or have been trained in that process.
Yep, approximately 25 districts are implementing COPES, and a lot of interest in training over the summer and next fall moving forward. So just from personal experience, we are implementing this model at the agency, and I would say the implementation over the last couple of years has really been a positive experience for me as a supervisor, as well as being evaluated by my boss, Cheryl Malaha. So it's been definitely a partnership. It allows you to have good conversations. It's an opportunity for coaching and to really grow the professional from where they're at. And frankly, tell them thank you and make sure that they're recognized for the good work that they're doing.
I think both of those systems take the anxiety out of the evaluation process, number one, but it also creates that partnership so that as a district administrator, as a central administrator, you really feel that the purpose of this is not just evaluation, but my own personal professional growth as well. And that partnership, I think, has been the one thing, especially as for districts using our model for teachers and building administrators, that concept of a partnership and my involvement in the process is the one thing that we hear more than anything.
And again, I mean, we may be looking at the COPES at some point. Obviously, right now, our main concentration is on the DAPE system. And so, yeah, moving forward, I think those are some of the discussions that we're going to have. I don't really have a lot of time to talk about it tonight. And again, so I mean, there is some things that we need to look at when we consider that. And again, so there are some things that are at least for the alignment that look pretty good, but I'll leave up. I've studied it enough of it. The rest of the board has any other questions, I'll leave it up to them at this point. Otherwise, I might be giving you some.
Yeah, that's fine. And again, the benefit of this is that it's, the training is done on your time in your district. And I think what I've seen in working with Menominee Falls and some of the other districts is that ability to have your board working hand in hand with the district administrator really provides a very clear expectation for that superintendent of what it is that the board is expecting of him or her.
Sure, and we've had some of that discussion. Does the board have any other questions?
Just a brief comment. I think the system is very detailed and structured. It's very familiar to us in many ways because we have adopted a very similar type structure, not only for our teachers and our educational leaders, but as a board, we have used those same practices with our administrative staff. So I see this as a kind of a validation of what we have already moved forward doing, although I see tremendous value in this, and I honor and support that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Keith and Cheryl.
Brings us to the agenda items entitled Continuous School Improvement. And first up, we have the presentation of the district strategic plan. And I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Ritzenthaler for intros.
And while Lori sets up the PowerPoint here, you've probably noticed that we have a number of community members and staff members with us tonight, and they're going to take a large portion of this and talk about the outcomes from our process. And I did include a document in the board packet outlining the last time the district went through this process, as well as the proposed timeline for this year. And you can see we're right on target to present by May of our strategic plan, and then we have some work to do after tonight as well. So this was really a very collaborative effort. We're going to have the members talk about not only the outcomes from this process, but their experience being part of this broader committee and being part of this process. And before we jump into our new plan, we'd like to just revisit our last plan and highlight some of the accomplishments from the 2011-14 plan. So I think we're going to start with 21st Century Learning, and we have a number of administrators who are going to provide a brief outline of our accomplishments.
Awesome. So I'll quickly go through my portion of it from the 2011 to 2014 strategic plan, and obviously mine was 21st Century Learning. I think I'll get that presentation up there, but I'm going to kind of talk about just 5 core pieces of that, the piece of the strategic plan. The first one is student access, and I'll go through the remainder. But from 2011, 2014, we've been able to put nearly 1,800 devices into the hands of our students. So about 1,200 Chromebooks and about 600 iPads. We also implemented BYOD at the middle school and the high school, which put another about 800 devices in the hands of our students that they could bring to school to use for educational purposes. So that's number one, student access. And the second one, I'm kind of Jim and a couple other in here too. The next one on there is the PD, but I'm going to kind of cut before I get to that. Talk about infrastructure, because again, without all these devices, without a proper infrastructure to support that, they're pretty useless. So we've been able to really strengthen our wireless, because really a lot of the devices we're getting now are completely wireless. And we've also been able to move from 80 megabytes internet to 900, which is a significant boost, which obviously really is impactful on student performance and anyone's performance in our environment here. So that infrastructure, and the third piece of it, I'm jamming another one in here, is transform classrooms and spaces. And again, we're trying to transform and maximize and make flexible every single space we have. And technology plays a big portion in being able to do that. So again, throughout the last 3 years, we've been able to update. We've added more, like 100 more smart boards and projectors in our classrooms, and some additional LED screens. And now we're going to get kind of caught up here. And obviously now we have all these tools, we have all these resources. Now the PD part comes in, where we're going to see classroom impact. So really helping teachers utilize these tools effectively in their classroom spaces. So we've been able to provide 450 plus hours of PD, technology-related PD, to our staff, which hopefully helps those tools be more impactful in their classroom and their spaces. So that's been really good. It's been actually really exciting. That's a lot of time, and we have a lot of people in the district who have we have a cadre of staff who've been able to provide that. So that's been great to see that. We've also been able to certify 9 Google trainers, Google education trainers, which is a big deal. For a school district our size, that's a lot of trainers, a lot of time they put in. This again just shows how awesome our staff is. So, and they're great. It's a great staff to work with. The community outreach piece there also, which is something we're trying to make sure that that the community understands how we're utilizing tools with these technology tools in the classroom. So a lot of elementaries, like I think Nick had them, but a lot of these elementaries have tech nights to display how they're using technology and technology resources in their classroom with kids. So that kind of covers those bullet points there. It was a big, heavy-duty year, those 3 years, but I think we've made some significant progress in really using technology and creating an infrastructure to support it.
And then under community outreach, we have a couple of people here, just a quick updates on the highlights of what we've accomplished. So, yes.
We're fortunate to have a very active community involvement in our elementary schools. Our Baraboo Classroom Community Connections has created approximately 200 connections with our community, where we have businesses and groups from our community coming into each of our K-5, actually 4K through 5th grade classrooms at least 3 times during the year. And that's really strengthened relations between our community and our school district, and it's been really great. So that's just what to add there.
I get to piggyback on the workforce development grant and the business partnerships that are taking place here at Baraboo High School. It's really flourishing. It's really one of those areas I think that is most exciting, and an opportunity for our students that will only continue to grow. All of our students in career and technical education courses over the last few days, in fact, have been watching some videos to get information about what employability opportunities there are and youth apprenticeship opportunities are, so that they're informed about it and can see how that ties into their really personalized learning plan moving forward. So we're really excited about where this is at right now, and we're really fortunate to have the partnerships that we have in our community, and they will only continue to grow.
Next up is the BHS Athletics Hall of Fame. We've inducted 2 classes, 2013, 2014, with a total of 18 inductees. We're currently working over the next month. We'll select the 2015 class, and we'll have a 3rd class at the end of September during homecoming. I really think it's been a great event. It's actually one of my favorite events of the year. And I think there's at least 3 different purposes or benefits that we've gotten from it. Number 1, it's always great to celebrate past accomplishments and successes. Number 2, it's been great to bring back people who haven't been back in the building, or maybe some of them haven't even been in town, in decades. People that have been out of state that have come back, and it's great to see their eyes and their reaction as we take them on a tour on that Friday afternoon. I think we give them a little school tour, and that's exciting. And then that same day, we introduce them to the student body, and to me, it really reinforces or brings back the true meaning of homecoming, which again is bringing back your alumni and especially recognizing those that have gone on to do great things. And then lastly, to me, I find it's a very inspirational thing for our current students, for our current coaches and community members. It's neat for them, and the students are fantastic at the ceremony where they'll sit and quietly listen to the inductees. But again, I think it's inspirational for them to hear their story, and I have to think that their minds are spinning of, if that person could do it and they're from Baraboo, why can't I do it? So it's been a great thing.
I'm going to talk a little bit about parent evenings. So at the elementary level, what that kind of looks like is at the beginning of the school year, our staff comes together and we talk about some opportunities that we'd like to provide parents to come into our schools and then bring their children with them. And there's been some really great events that we've had at GLW. I'll just give you an example. Something that Matt talked a little bit about and touched on was our tech night, where we have individuals come in and they get to see all the wonderful technology pieces that we incorporate into the school every day. We have math night, we have literacy night, which what I really think needs to be highlighted is the incredible amount of time that the teachers put in, because this is after school where they're just putting in their time. And if you were to come to GLW Literacy Night, it's amazing. We have probably half of our staff members that are there supporting this cause. We started out, the first time we did it, I think we had like 20 students show up. This last time that we did it, we had over 150 students show up. And it's a pretty unique event. And also, every school has unique events that they do. One thing that I know Al Bierman does is they have a cultural night that they bring in and celebrate cultural diversity, and I've been to it myself, and it's very unique. So I thank you for putting this strategic plan together, because I think it's allowed us to focus in on something that's been really great for our buildings. Also, a little bit about service learning. One thing we're really focusing on is teaching the students what it means to be part of the community, and then also what it means to have a positive impact on that community. And we've had some great things that different grade levels have been doing for service learning. An example would be, we've had 4th grade who's been cleaning up the Ice Age Trail the past 2 years for their service learning project. With 2nd grade at GLW who's doing a Read to Feed program. Different food drives, gone out to Oak Park Place and done some community outreach there. Clothing drives, creating these mini libraries that you can put out in front of the school. So just some things that have been great to showcase the positives the students can have within their own community.
And then the last goal area was focused on goal alignment and professional development plan. Some great work has occurred here as well. We've really been a district that's been a leader in the state around multi-tiered systems of supports and framework, or you might know as RTI and PDIS blended together. And that's really our continuous school improvement framework to improve student achievement. Part of that framework is having a balanced assessment framework, another framework, so that we look at multiple data to support the instructional decision-making that we do for each of our students. And then also giving focus to our teachers around what has the biggest impact on student achievement in their classroom, which is the district instructional priorities. So we've done a lot of professional development around those priorities.
It was 10 years ago that Teresa Lean came on board as our first instructional coach, and we have since then built an incredibly robust coaching model. And the PLC structures allow for coaches to utilize that time and grow and learn from one another. And that PLC structure also allows what Matt was referring to. And, yes, we have 9 Google Education trainers on board, but also a cadre of other technology leaders in our district who led a tech buffet last Wednesday, teachers teaching other teachers tech tools so that we can ensure that there's an excellent teacher in every classroom who is a 21st century teacher. Our SMART goals have been aligned so that we have a district goal supported by building level SMART goals put together by the district administrators, supported by teacher SMART goals, so that we're all working in a similar direction. And our DCC, District Curriculum Council, has worked to put a 3-year professional development plan together, so that kind of provides the framework for all of that.
And this is a visual that the board is familiar with, and at the top you'll see strategic planning now, because as Nick alluded to, this provides focus for our district. And so we've talked a little bit about assessments, curriculum, and technology around student achievement, the teacher engagement piece, and we have recently focused on our facility planning, looking at co-curricular programs and how our learning environments can support that 21st century teaching and learning. And then most importantly, this is a slide of all of our committee members who have been involved. So, and we did have 3 board members, Mo, Doug, and Sean, involved in the process as well. And many of the people have given up their evenings, multiple evenings, to be part of this process and to be here tonight to really champion what the district is doing in the direction that we're headed. So again, thank you for being here tonight.
As part of our process, we asked our stakeholders to give us some feedback about the process. And Ellen has created this Wordle, which if you're not familiar with Wordles, based on the words, the frequency of words that are added into the machine, so to speak, the bigger the word, the more frequent that response was from our stakeholders. So what's really interesting, I feel, is to see that the biggest words are enlightening, invigorating, engaging, informative, and visionary. And I think that really captures the spirit of the whole process. I felt it was a very positive process, and I love invigorating, because that's, I think, a lot of us had talked about as we left those meetings.
And this is where I want to give the committee members an opportunity to, if they want to add anything about their experience with this process, whether it was your first time around or your second time around with this process. And we did ask for them, too, to give us some feedback on what they really thought were positives about the process and where we can improve. So hopefully we'll take that and we'll learn from that. And as we go through not only the next cycle, or you will go through the next cycle, but also the annual reviews, we can apply what we learned during this process.
I think one of the things I know about the process was that not only did we talk about the current challenges that we face, but we really focused on what is the future of education going to be like and look like for our students, for our staff, and for our community. And I thought that was really exciting to kind of not only deal with the here and now, but also to look ahead into the future and try to gauge what kind of changes are coming down the pipe and how we can meet the needs of kids in the future moving forward.
And looking at what John said, looking at the future, as a teacher, my idea of what the future in education looks like is very much different than what community members, and I think that it was truly enlightening. Because a lot of times I'll hear what John and Dave have to say, or Lori has to say, or parents or students, but very rarely do I get to talk to business leaders, university, Dean Jervil from the university. It's just interesting hearing all of the stakeholders and what their view of the future is versus just my view. So it really was enlightening for me.
I think some of the best discussions we had were how to better engage the students in their learning process, the business in helping the school deliver opportunities for education, and for helping the students understand what they need to be a functional employee in the businesses as well. So I think a lot of that really was kind of synergistic in what we were doing in the strategic planning meetings.
I really enjoyed listening to a variety of perspectives, and even when we found areas where there might be roadblocks, many perspectives was how can we change that into an opportunity for growth for our district. So I really appreciated all of those comments as well.
Just to piggyback off what Brian was saying, I was in a group once, we had just a bunch of community members, and there was someone in there who didn't really know what we did on Early Release Wednesdays. So it was interesting to go and talk to community members, because those early releases are so important, but we forget that they don't know what we're doing, or we forget to tell people as teachers what we're doing in our classrooms and sharing. So it was really nice to be with people who aren't just teachers and who maybe are parents of the community or of students. It was a fun process.
Anyone else?
Yeah, I guess I'd like to talk a little bit. I think we heard a lot from the educators that were involved in the group, but you know, from a community aspect, what I really liked about the process was I thought that the people that we had were very engaged. I also like the idea that every night we kind of shuffled the deck and moved people around, and I think that that was really important because it forces you just by where your seat assignment was to interact with other individuals. We tend to get complacent and we sit at the same seats in church and we sit in the same chairs when we come into a building, so it was good to mix it up. I think the most hopeful thing for me was you saw the level of excitement, the level of suggestions that were brought forth, and I didn't see anybody trying to forward a very specific agenda. I think people were very inclusive, and I thought that that was very positive with what we got for an outcome.
Anyone else? Okay, as just a reminder, the board has already reviewed the revised mission statement. The School District of Baraboo strives for excellence to ensure that every learner is successful in an evolving world, and we had a lot of conversation about every learner, and that means every adult and every student as well. So that was a key word for us to talk about. Core beliefs centered around future investment, collaborative engagement, personalized learning, and safe environment. And what kind of emerged, we didn't really start out with this in mind to create a district model, and I think it might have been Jane who first, maybe not Jane, who first brought this up, or we talked about engage, learn, grow. We needed something concise. Was it you, Bob?
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. It was something very concise to share about what we're all about. And so as we work and talk a little bit later about our communication plan moving forward, we really want to have this out in front, engage, learn, grow.
So our end product, to give us a new start, is seen here, and you know, before going to maybe a professional graphic designer, so this is our attempt to show it in a way that's easy to read, but there are 4 strategic directions that were the end result from our conversations. One is focused on community partnerships, modernized community campus, personalized learning, and then maximizing potential of learners and educators, and we're going to allow the members to talk for each of those different strategic directions here. So the first one is community partnerships. Oh, okay. I was kicking it off too.
Oh, all right. So the 3 areas that we wanted to focus on for our community partnerships plan is volunteerism, partnerships with youth-based organizations, and business education partnerships. And we've talked about the business education partnerships and how they've evolved over the past 3 years of the strategic plan. And going forward, we just want to continue to build on our existing partnerships and also expand that into other industries. We've talked about healthcare and technology. So we want to just continue on the momentum we have going and expand that. And sorry, going back to the graph, you'll notice this on each of the areas. We've broken it down by learners, educators, and district and community. So we've taken action steps for each of the areas, volunteerism, partnerships with youth-based organizations, and the business education partnerships, and placed action steps into each of those squares in the grid. So you can kind of see what each group of stakeholders can do to achieve the steps. Sorry to back it up a step. Volunteerism, we wanted to look at this in 2 ways, both bringing volunteers from the community into the classrooms and also getting the students out into the community as volunteers. As educators, we are hoping that our teachers provide opportunities for community members and parents to come into the classrooms. We got some feedback that we were lacking in opportunities, and we hope to create more of them going forward. Partnerships with youth-based organizations. We want to share the information on behalf of our youth-based organizations in our classrooms to make resources available to our families and students. We want to act almost as liaisons to get that information flowing into the classrooms and to our students and families. And underlying all of these groups and the volunteerism, the partnerships, the business education partnerships, is communication. One of the main pieces of feedback we received in this part of the process is that we need to tell our story more and we need to tell our story better. So that communications piece is underlying all of the learners, the educators, the district community, the volunteerism, the partnerships with youth-based organizations, and the business education partnerships. We just need to continue to develop our communication and to do it more and to do it better. So that is kind of the underlying framework of this whole piece.
Thank you, Nikki. Does anybody else that was in that group want to add anything to community partnerships?
I think from the business side, what we were really trying to look to do here is to learn how to engage our businesses in developing curriculum that they can provide, no matter what business it is or based on specific industries we have here in town. So really looking at doing more of an outreach with them on things that other businesses are doing so that we can actually identify what other businesses can do for the school district as well.
Okay, so our next strategic direction is personalized learning. I don't know, Danny, do you want to?
Sure, I can take a look at this. So, I had an opportunity to work with a wonderful group on personalized learning. So really what our goals are really to develop a solid understanding of what personalized learning is and to expand our opportunities for personalized learning. So it's building those knowledge, skills, and dispositions of our staff and educating our community regarding what personalized learning means. And it's not, oftentimes when we say personalized learning, we think of technology, but it goes much beyond just ensuring we're a technology-rich district. So it's building that framework. It's educating and collaborating with learners and staff, parents, and community on what a personalized learning approach means for Baraboo and what that encompasses. And it's really continuing to create those resources that our students and staff can access them anytime, anywhere. So really making that personalized learning a 24/7 opportunity for our students, should they so desire that. And one thing we hope to accomplish over the next few years, there's different stages of implementing the personalized learning framework. So our goal would be to implement across the district stage 1, which is known as a teacher-centered with learner voice and choice in all classrooms. So it's building that foundation and ensuring our staff have the skills to be able to provide that kind of opportunity and environment for our students.
Anyone else on that particular committee?
During the strategic planning process, there's lots of times where we were looking at what are the challenges that we face and what are the opportunities, and this was definitely seen as an opportunity, personalized learning for both staff and students.
Next strategic direction is modernized community campus.
I'm not there, I don't know.
You can do it right there.
Okay. So with the modernized community campus, we had 3 major strategies. First one was to get out the master facility planning document that was created a few years ago. A number of the folks on the committee either A, didn't know about it, or B, maybe have heard about it but don't know its contents. So we thought that was an important first step, was to look back, again, 2 or 3 years ago, whenever that was created, and review that. And then in terms of the review process, really kind of 3 steps. First of all, we envisioned having the building principals and or department heads, department directors, to get input from their staff, whether it's teaching staff, custodial staff, secretaries, everybody, and identifying their priorities in their own building. And then from that, the next step would have been to solicit also input from the stakeholders and get support from them, again, internally and externally. And then the last step is obviously to communicate that out once we make the decisions based on everybody's priorities, to communicate that out. The second strategy then is related to reviewing and looking at what our current use is of our facilities, and both internal use and external use. And we talked about developing some kind of tracking system to, again, to get that data. We do have an online reservation system that we currently use. However, I don't know that it's very conducive right now to just, downloading into a spreadsheet, for example. So it may take a little bit of time and going through some documents, but we thought that was important to at least start with analyzing, okay, how much are our buildings used? And even just beyond athletics, because again, we know that our gyms are used all the time and things like that, but there's so much more. So again, we wanted to find out where we're at. And then based on the results of that, kind of takes it into that third step, that to really market and communicate out to the community and local businesses, nonprofits, what availability we do have. And the example that came up that I thought was a great example was, let's say you're a small business owner, you got 15 or 20 employees, but you don't have, a meeting room or a little conference room to do some training and or computers. Again, let's say you've got some online training to do, but you don't, not every business has 15 or 20 computers. In fact, we were meeting in this room that night, and somebody pointed out, boy, that area back over there with the 15, 20 computers would be perfect for some business to be able to come in and give some training to their employees. So just things like that, again, beyond just our gyms and athletics, but just some of the equipment we've got and the technology we've got that, we'd love to offer that up, that the school, again, gets a better community connection, that the community looks at this as more than just a K-12 campus, that we want to make this available beyond the school day. So those were our three big strategies.
Anybody else from that group?
I think I was on that group, and I think one of the challenges that we had too was trying to figure out how to communicate to the public that our buildings were built quite a long time ago, and how fast, the educational piece is changing, and how those classrooms need to be used, and how to modernize the campus, how we're gonna go about doing that, and how we go about communicating to the general public why we need to do what we do. It's easy to probably tell people that we have a gymnasium that was built for 3 classes and we have 4 in there, and it's probably easy to articulate that. But how do you tell somebody that the middle school may not be structured or built the way that it was supposed to be, and you have to do some renovations in the classroom? So outside of what we have identified there, I think that's one of the challenges we have, and hopefully we can kind of help evolve that process as we go forward. I think I saw the mayor's comments in the paper about East School on how his daughter came back to that school and said, it's exactly the same that it was. I went to that school and it's pretty much the same way there too when I went there. So I think that's really kind of interesting to me, is how we go about articulating that message when we do want to do some of those renovations down the road. It's going to be important. I think that was one of the things that we talked about a lot, is how important crafting that message and getting that message out as to why we need to do it. It's easy to figure out how much to spend and but how do we really engage the community in that conversation? And that kind of came back why we want to make sure everybody knows we have maybe some time for the schools, or that you might be able to use the schools for other things than just athletics. I mean, those that try to use that scheduling system to book our gyms knows our gyms are full, even though a lot of people don't think they are. They are full all the time, because I can't find it's like money for gold. So, so I think that's the biggest thing that I came out of that group is, changing our classroom environments, modifying existing buildings to meet 21st century learning. So.
And I think that particular piece tied in nicely with the personalized learning group, where we really do need an updated and modernized campus if we want to move forward in that regard.
And our last strategic direction is maximizing potential of learners and educators, and I know from spending my whole afternoon with John, he wants to go first on this one.
Sure. We broke it down too in terms of 3 strategies, and we focused on the responsive use of data, and we've gotten really good at collecting data in our industry, and the next logical step is now taking that data and using it to inform our decisions, and looking at it through the lens of both educators, students, and then community members. How do we use the data that we have to make quality decisions that impact student growth? Then we also talked about high fidelity feedback and developing that growth mindset so that we can take that feedback and then turn it into, moving forward, continuing to grow professionally. And that was the last part, that just dedication to professional growth and ongoing job-embedded learning. And again, how does that affect your educators, how does it affect students, and then the community at large?
Teresa, you have anything you want to add to that?
I know she does.
I know she does too.
Know that we're looking at how to evolve all of this into our PLC schedule next year through some dedicated time in growing the strategic plan through purposeful kinds of things like training the trainers, which will build capacity, and moving along the big 3, so it all ties together.
And should the board approve the new strategic plan, I mentioned that we do have some work ahead of us. We do want to focus on communication because that's a critical component of all of these areas. We're going to continue to create our action teams that will be working across the district. Some of those action teams will include external stakeholders as well. And as you know, we're all about SMART goals and aligning those goals across the district. And this is a work in progress. So, we sometimes change routes a little bit or directions. We sometimes add and refine those through our annual review process. But we're really looking forward to implementing this plan. We think it's a great plan.
So one of those first steps is the communications and media plan, and I think that's really important because our goal is we want all of our stakeholders to understand our story. We want to tell our story, and with that story, where are we going over the next few years? And to do that, we want to create ownership too, and that's why we broke out each of those strategic directions so that learners know what their role is, educators know what their role is in the district and community. And so we can all work together to own that strategic plan. With that in mind, there's a number of audiences to share the strategic plan with, so we listed those out there, including local and state educational community. That makes us a viable district. We've got a lot of accolades, and we want to continue to attract students and families to this community to thrive and grow. And then in order to reach all those targeted audiences, we need a blended approach because we're looking at multi-generations there. And so we know that our younger generations like to get their information through social media. And we know that some of our older generations, or younger generations, enjoy getting hard copies. So, and Nikki, I know, wanted to share some of the things we've already started in that process, and then we'll end too with just, maybe not. The question is, oh, there it is. How, you think that, and this isn't meant for us to really engage in tonight, but to be thinking about that, what are some things that we can do to most effectively communicate progress?
Yeah, so with each group in the strategic planning process, we heard how important communication is, whether it's telling our story of successes in our classroom or communicating information about our facilities. It's underlying each part of the strategic planning process. And like Lori said, we have to have a blended approach. We need to convey all of our messaging across several media to ensure we are hitting all of those target audiences. We will continue to work with the newspaper, who has been a great partner since I've been working in communications in the district for the past year. But we will also continue to develop our electronic communication, including our website, social media, and the electronic newsletter that we currently send out weekly. We are also looking into having some brochures and other printed materials done to share with organizations and businesses in the community so they have those professional pieces to share with community members. And next month, we are actually presenting to a group of realtors in the community that we hope to share some of those brochures and pieces with, so they have the professional materials to share with new families moving into the area to showcase our strategic plan.
Can I add a little bit to that, please?
Absolutely.
I've been working with the chamber, when Bonnie and I moved here in 1989, we had a welcome wagon in Baraboo. Of course, welcome wagon has gone away, and it is a copyrighted name. But we see that there is a lack of ability for new people to become acquainted with the community. Dr. Olson, where you at? There you go. Talked about how difficult it was to try to come up with information that he could give to new students to take home to their parents. So what we're trying to do is, I'm working with the chamber. There will be a press release later this week. It talks about what we're going to try. We're going to try a program called the Baraboo Boosters. We're going to have specific individuals that, if people would like us to come to their homes and talk to them as new arrivals in Baraboo, we can certainly do that. What we would like to do is hand them a packet of material. Included in that, obviously, is going to be information from the school district, as well as the Boys and Girls Club, where our daycares, where our churches. I mean, it's going to cover pretty much everything that we can. And even then, it won't be a complete list. Obviously, we'll forget somebody, but I think it's important that when people come into town, that they get as much information as possible, especially if they're a young couple with a family. I think that having that information given to them rather than having them wrote it out is very important. So that'll be something coming up in the very near future. Thank you. Another way of communicating.
I want to talk to you about big plans later for
Oh, yeah.
like along the highway.
I want to make sure I don't exclude the board members who were part of the process too. If there's any thoughts or comments that you'd like to share either about the process or any of the individual strategies, goals.
Well, I appreciated being part of the process. It's a challenge. Even when we started talking about personalized learning, just even defining what that is a challenge in itself. And how do we move forward with that? Which is what we want the strategic plan to be. I mean, even as we even move forward in this meeting tonight, when we're discussing, I think, on our next agenda item, professional development plan. We want this to be a living document that drives us in the decisions that we make. And so even in that instance, I'll be asking questions and say, well, how does this affect in our strategic plan? How is this driving us to where we want to go? And so I do really appreciate all that's said. But that being said, engage, learn, and grow, I think, is a great way for us to go. I look at different parts of it and not being part of those different components in their different levels. And I always ask questions saying, and obviously maybe that's the devil's in the details, that we have to drive those things. It's like when we talk about volunteerism, it can't just be here's your rake, go out and rake. There has to obviously be a learning component with that. And so, I mean, I think we need to figure out ways to obviously integrate learning standards with that. The other thing when it comes to communication, the one thing is that we have tell stories, and I really believe that as a schools, we haven't done as good a job as we possibly can in telling stories, but we always have to emphasize the listening component too. And so that's one thing that I would like to have, because I think it has to be that two-way street. Otherwise, I think we've done a good job throughout integrating things regarding personalized learning One thing with modernizing community campuses, there are some things that we are integrating. We obviously have a new media center. And as we move forward, I think I'd like to say, obviously, we have a strategic plan portion that we need to do. Is we do that in our computer labs and all of these things that are changing. We're changing those things. And as we change those things, we need to create models and study those models to say, okay, what worked, what didn't work. So then if we do start talking about facility changes, which we do need, we do have more of a focus on what those changes need to be. But otherwise, I think, again, I think this really does give us the directions.
I'll echo a lot of what Doug said, I just won't repeat it, because he stole some of my thunder. But first of all, I just want to say, I do want to say thank you to each and everybody that's here and to the people that aren't here, because it's giving up a lot of time. Everybody's got a long day, and then you come in and yet really refreshed, ready to go to talk about strategic planning for the district. And it was a very good process to go through, and everybody committed, and I appreciate it. And to repeat the parts that Doug mentioned, when you have that well thought out strategic plan, it makes a huge difference as board members, because it isn't a plan that goes in the drawer. It's something that we do use, I use to help guide those decisions that we make on a regular basis. Crystal mentioned the visual that it provides. Wordle, is that the thing that I saw? There was a term on Wordle called daunting, and if anybody wrote it, I probably wrote it 3 times to get it that size. It is very daunting to go through this process, and that's okay. But what the visual does is that allows us to communicate out in a much easier way. And last time we were talking about the T-Bird and investing in our staff, investing in our students, and investing in our schools. And that resonated, that simple concept resonated very well with the community. And the community responded, and they gave us $10 million and said, here you go. It is time to make those investments you're talking about. So when you start talking about the new, updated, engage, learn, grow, is that what it was?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Sorry.
Yes, it sticks.
It isn't just a tagline, okay? It's a process of communicating. It's a framework for a conversation that we have with our community members, and it's a great starting step. So all I want to say is thank you very much.
And we don't have any students here tonight who were part of the committee, but I think that student voice was so important as well. And the next time around, or part of the annual review, we want to make sure that we include maybe even more students in that process, because, I mean, they should be at the center of our discussions.
Dr. Ritzenteller, just one thing I'd like to add. Alex Stout is here.
Oh,
and he
hi, Alex. I didn't see you back there.
Thanks for coming, Alex.
Yeah, I really like the process, because as a student looking at all the planning that goes into what actually is going on in the school, I didn't really realize it before, but there's a lot of stuff that goes into every little thing that as a student I don't really pay that much attention to, and it was really cool to see the planning and be part of the planning for the next 3 years.
Thank you, Alex.
Mo?
Well, I think Doug and Sean pretty much covered, and the comments from everyone tonight. I did appreciate very much being a part of this. I really appreciated hearing the voices from inside our schools, from teachers, from students, from the community. I think that is a huge step up toward telling our story, is just to bring people together, have an opportunity to talk about what we do, why we do it, how we might do it differently, how we see changes that are on the horizon, how we might deal with those changes. The whole thing was tiring and energizing at the same time. I am a big, I was part of the community engagement, and I do really think that we need to tell our story, but I appreciate what Doug said. We need to listen too. We need to get the word out there so that people know what's going on, in our schools, and what we face, what teachers face, what administrators face, and then listen. And that's going to be hard to do, to have the conversation be two-way. But there's nothing like no way to get people talking than to put some statements out there and look for, listen to the response. So I'm looking to Nikki for for starting a dialogue, and inviting people to come in, keep coming back, and keep talking to their teachers, the teachers in the schools, the administrators, to board members, and then for us to really hear what they're saying. Because hearing what people said over the past several months was enlightening.
It was.
It was.
So tonight, we're asking for the board to approve the 2015-18 District Strategic Plan, which would include the 4 goal areas and the strategies below. As Doug referenced, the action steps will change. It'll be living. We'll make adjustments and revisions as we go through that process.
So moved.
Second.
Having a motion by McNevin, seconded by Meering for the approval of the 2015-18 District Strategic Plan as presented. Any further discussion?
I participated in the previous plan, and I honor tremendously the continuous work. This is not something that we just do. This district is very, very special in the fact that there is continuous engagement, continuous improvement in every arena. And I am honored to sit at this table and to listen at every board meeting and to be in the schools and to hear the reports across the board of all of the activities that all of you have worked to harmonize so that it is easy to tell the story. And there are so many stories. But we have a great one, and I think the word is continuous. You know, we talk about continuous improvement, continuous learning. This is a part of the process. And all of the different modes of communication that can be used need to be, including ambassadors. I think that was Mayor Palm's with the Baraboo.
The new welcome wagon.
The new welcome wagon. Boosters. You know, we need, our students are our best messengers. You know, they need to be empowered to tell these stories as they do. All of us have stories to tell, and every engagement where we have an opportunity with someone in the community to tell a story, I think we need to ask, what have you heard, and let me tell you. Thank you.
Those in favor of the motion as presented signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carried. Thank you to all that attended and for the presentations.
You're welcome to stay for the rest of the meeting, but you're also, I know you've been very patient and appreciate your participation tonight.
Thank you very much.
So thank you again for coming.
All right, just so we don't lose too many people, let's roll right along here. Ms. Miller.
Upward and onward.
Well, we can get through this in 30 years. I want to revisit with you 2 slides that we looked at last school year about this time when we talked about professional development. Why the investment? Because it is an investment. We've been talking about that word a lot tonight. Remember that research in education says that there's a 10-year rule, that it takes 10 years of deliberate practice to get a teacher to expert status. And approximately 1/3 of our staff is in their first 3 years of teaching. The concern with that is that if we don't manage that well, that has a significant impact on our student achievement. And the research is clear that, you know, the more highly skilled your teachers are, the better results you're gonna get in the classroom with students. And so how does the district encourage teachers to continue developing their expertise? It's by providing that ongoing professional development, which is an investment, and giving teachers collaboration time. So last year we had a conversation around this time about we wanted to make sure that we're increasing time in our classrooms while we're building capacity with our teachers, and yet reduce costs as well. So a comparison here, it's not a direct comparison. Ellen has pulled these numbers for us, but just the amount of funds that we have spent on professional development sub-costs. Okay, so that's just professional development subs. For the year of 2013, January through December, we spent $104,406. You gave me direction last year that you wanted that reduced. And so just for this fiscal period, the 14-15 school year, we've only spent $49,604 up to this point in the school year on sub-costs. So I just want to highlight that we are listening, we are trying to keep our teachers in the classrooms as much as possible while providing the professional development that's needed to have the good student results. Additionally, we wanted to highlight at this point in the school year, which most of our professional development spending is almost, you know, complete at this point. Jeff likes to hear that. We have a remaining $40,132 in our funds, and we wanted to show that to you because we want to highlight we're not just spending the funds because they're there. We're really being strategic about what professional development opportunities that we're providing to our staff. So I just wanted to revisit that and show you the progress we're making.
Lori, the 2013 is a 12-month.
It's a 12-month, and same with the 14-15 is a 12-month. It's just looking at a fiscal period versus a calendar.
Lori, I think it's important to mention that the reason we're able to reduce those costs is because, as Matt referenced, we have a lot of quality educators in our district that are providing training within our district. Many times better than training that we could get outside of the district.
And really maximizing our PLC
Yes.
structure to do that work.
I would just like to frame that a little bit differently than what I heard, because
Sure.
I certainly did not vote to decrease professional development. I think that's absolutely essential to the accomplishment of everything that we've done, and we're reaping the rewards. And you don't pull the rug out from under something that's just developing. So I would just reframe that by reiterating what Crystal has said, is that as with all of our focus, we have looked within and utilized the talents that we have developed to be able to address some of these issues. And guess what? Instead of sending many of our teachers out for professional development, they are now leading seminars not only internally, but other districts are asking all of you to come share with them what you have done to move us forward.
In just 1 week, we've had New Holstein and Wausau come visit us about some of the things that we're doing. And that is an ongoing thing that we don't really talk about in this
And
group,
that needs to be something that we talk about, because that is what has been created that allows us to manage all of the challenges, both financially and in other arenas, that all of us are challenged with, is the competency that has been developed internally to be able to manage these processes.
I think
We need to tell our stories.
I need to tell our stories, right.
I think that it would be great, I bet, if we submitted a picture to the newspaper when visiting school districts come. Just the photo and what they were here for, who they are. I'll bet the paper would be very interested in it.
But you know what the slide speaks to? It speaks to this award that we got. And that is a story that needs to be, I mean, we've been recognized for doing this piece right here, building teacher capacity.
Great.
Okay, so I just want to, Crystal loves this
Is that you,
slide.
Got that, Annie?
Is that you, Lori, in the middle?
That's not me. One of the roles though that I have as the director of curriculum instruction is buffering for our staff. So if you put a teacher in the middle there, all of the different, what the state calls initiatives, and you can read them all, they're all things that are part of the larger context of the work that they're doing, and yet they come to school every day to work with our kids. And so part of the role of providing professional development is giving them the right professional development at the right time and managing all of these strategies so it doesn't feel like the person in the middle. And so one of the conversations our district curriculum council had, and that's the group of teachers that come together and plan our professional development moving forward, we talked about we're in pursuit of integration. And so, you know, there's a lot of initiatives, hate that word, but a lot of initiations.
We don't use that word here.
Yep, school districts initiate stuff and they might get to a level of implementation and then they start to move on to something else. And not too often do school districts get to a level of integration, which is how we do business on a daily, you know, so it doesn't take a lot of mental energy to do that work because we've been doing it so well for so long. And so the goal for any kind of professional development we're doing is really getting to that level of integration because it's going to benefit our kids. And so another way to think about it is think, do, be, and those are some of our AVE students, which we got to keep the focus on the kids.
Is that what, so like you're saying you've got all these arrows that we're trying to combine the arrows so that they're
Yes.
not?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, so tonight we're just going to talk about the PLC structure, but I just want to remind you that PLC, that first box, is only one way that we provide professional development to our staff. There's many different ways that we provide professional development, and just like you heard Dr. Fuchs talk, now in the state of Wisconsin, all of that is really under this umbrella of educator effectiveness. And educator effectiveness done right, like we talked about last time as a board, is providing opportunities for our teachers to grow so it benefits our students. Okay, so knowing that we need to provide more focus, kind of putting all those arrows together, Doug, as we talked about focus will lead to integration. So in your board packet, we provided a draft of all of the Wednesdays for next school year, including the new teacher orientation, which is part of our PD plan. The pre-session, we're going to focus on having an expert leader in our district, Ms. Lee here, provide a keynote on the foundations of teaching, because that's connected to educator effectiveness, that's the Danielson framework. Along with giving our teachers time to collaborate and plan for the upcoming school year, our staff loves having that time to do an instructional technology buffet and then also time to prepare in their classrooms. Then our structure is every first and third Wednesday, we're going to have that teacher collaboration time to look at data, plan instruction. That's what we've been doing for years now, every first and third Wednesday. We'll have instructional buffets where, like Crystal was saying, our teacher leaders provide instruction or professional development for each other. We have K-12 content area meetings dispersed throughout the PLC plan so that our teachers, K-12, can have vertical conversations. That's important to say, you know, as a first grade teacher, what are you teaching at kindergarten in math? I want to make sure I'm building on that, talking to the second grade teachers, and so it spirals up. And then what's new is our second and fourth Wednesdays we're calling TLCs. So we're going to have PLCs and TLCs, and explain what that is in a second. But that's really to coach our teachers and provide support for the Danielson framework of foundations of teaching. So real quickly, the Danielson framework you've seen, there are 4 domains and there are 22 components. Pretty hard to have focus when you're trying to improve on 22 components. So as a district, we created this visual, which is the same domains, but we looked at what the research says of those 22 components has the most impact on student achievement, and we call those our district instructional priorities. An example of that in domain 4, developing and demonstrating professionalism, the research would say teachers get better results in their classroom if a teacher has credibility. So how does a teacher demonstrate credibility to students and families so they get those results? So moving forward, using an expert here in the room, Teresa has brought forward to us some research from the Danielson framework that also provides focus. They have teaching and learning clusters, hence the TLC. At the beginning of the school year, part of the state system of educator effectiveness is our teachers, they rate themselves, they do a self-reflection, and they determine which of the 22 components they want to grow the most. And based on that, they fall into one of these 6 puzzle pieces, or a TLC cluster. And so if you look, each of those puzzle pieces fit into our already district instructional priorities. So our plan is to really streamline, I think is kind of what the word you're shooting for, Doug, is make sure, again, there's focus for our staff, that they're becoming the best teachers that they can be. And if a teacher can focus let's say on, student intellectual engagement all year long with a cohort of peers that are focused on that same area, they can collaborate with each other, learn from each other, and if we need to bring in experts, like maybe Matt comes in one day to talk about, engagement with instructional technology, we can do that during those second and fourth Wednesdays. So that's the vision that the District Curriculum Council has come together and planned.
This aligns with our strategic plan too, because it's personalized learning for our educators. It's differentiated just like we would expect it to be for our students.
Yeah. So I took something really complex that Teresa could have done an hour and a half, and I tried to make it simple enough for you to understand. But if you have questions.
I think Teresa could have done an all-day session on it. The one question I have, it's obviously, when I saw clusters, I was thinking of total school-wide clusters.
Oh, yep, totally different.
Well, and personalized learning. And, obviously, we got a million arrows right now. How are those fitting into this?
Perfect. I'm gonna let Teresa answer that because you do a great job of answering that.
Well, first of all, as Crystal said and what Lori showed you, you can align any of those clusters to our strategic plan, in particular the maximizing potential one. Because the responsive use of data will be the data that the teachers use to self-review their own practice, as Lori said. It's the evaluation data that's collected over an effectiveness cycle. And then the high fidelity feedback, of course, is during these TLCs, the teachers will be providing feedback for each other, the coaches, the administrators do through educator effectiveness. Essentially, anything we do in schools and teaching and learning runs through the framework. It's been researched as such, it's been proven over and over. So the challenge often I give people, and I know you've been in one of my sessions, is, give me something that you think might not fit in the framework that we do in schools. And inevitably, because of the way Charlotte has set it up, and it's on a constructive approach, now I'm gonna go the other way here and not start on that road, but it's all in this framework.
Okay.
Yeah, so
that's
personalized
how it
learning
aligns.
fits into each of those puzzle pieces.
And our total school-wide cluster.
Yep, absolutely.
Good,
Okay.
absolutely.
Okay. So even though I don't read it here in this document, it still feeds into the document.
We can throw any topic into this TLC and, create and plan and reflect and apply through it.
And what's critical is, again, the focus piece. If we said to our staff, okay, we need to work on personalized learning, we need to work on total school-wide clustering, we need to work on differentiation, it becomes overwhelming and they don't do any of it very well. But if we can push everything into a puzzle piece where they've self-selected based on their review, it becomes easier to manage and do well in that particular area.
Okay.
Yep. Any other questions?
I'm impressed.
You should be impressed. I guarantee there's no
telling
other
you.
district that has
I'm
anything
telling
like
you.
this.
Yeah,
You
everybody's
sit in
trying to
this
steal
seat
this
and you
plan
look
from
at
us.
what has been accomplished.
Copyrighted.
Well, they would like to do a validation study.
The Bear Booster Education.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Miller. Brings us to personnel recommendations, and I hope that the board members received an update this afternoon. We have a resignation that would be under A for Harmony Klingemeyer from the Jack Young Middle School music position.
I move to approve the resignation.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, motion carried. No retirements, new hires. We do have, however, one to add to the posting. That would be number 2, the Jack Young Middle School music position. Thus, there's the cross-categorical special education at East and the Jack Young Middle School music position. I'd entertain a motion for those 2 postings.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Vedro, seconded by Meering. Any discussion?
Just briefly, again, not to go into great detail, but one of the things I think we need to start looking at when we start even talking about facilities and the strategic planning is our special education needs. this obviously even fits into some of that. We have a lot of requirements and needs, so I think we need to have a nice discussion at some future point. So pull all the numbers together, give us that discussion, so then we can start focusing in on what our actual requirements are going forward. So I don't need to discuss.
And
that.
if we had some additional space right now, we'd probably be coming to you with some recommendations.
Yeah, but that's what we need to know. Do what are our space requirements for our requirements for all of our stuff.
Here, having a motion and a second. Do we have a motion on that? I'm not sure. I don't remember now.
I thought we did.
Yeah.
Motion, who seconded?
Peter and Doug.
Okay. Those in favor of those postings as presented, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Brings us then to the approval of the teacher contracts for 2015-16. First up, let's touch base with the current staff. Mr. Hubble.
Yes, in a nutshell, what we're doing in this subsection F, 1, is to approve contracts that we're going to issue to teaching staff for next year. And for the most part, we're just carrying forward all the current contracts to next year. The exceptions would be those who have resigned or retired. There's one position that was eliminated, so that obviously will not be carried forward. Ms. Klingenmeyer's position will not be carried forward. She just resigned and you approved her resignation. But other than that, everything's going to carry forward, and specifically the base wage, supplemental wage, and MA supplemental wage in the contracts. Some of the categories have been updated, specifically at the high school with the changing high school schedule. And so, so we're asking that be approved.
And these are consistent with the handbook and with input from our educational community.
Well, in this case, for the most part, there really wasn't much input in the sense that there really haven't been any changes other than the scheduling. And then one other change I will mention is additional 5 released professional development release days for 2 of the high school guidance counselors. And I outlined that in a memo that I sent to you as well.
So there are no recommendations for any non-renewals this year?
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion by McNevin, seconded by Riley. Any discussion further? Okay, hearing none. Those in favor then please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carried. Brings us then to number 2, which is the extended days for the middle school band director, which really isn't anything new. It's more of an oversight in our earlier action, if I recall.
Exactly.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion by McNevin,
Second by Mary.
second by Mehring. Any further discussion? Hearing none, those in favor please signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? Motion carried. Brings us to G, the approval of the additional stipends for 2015-16 nonviolent crisis intervention trainers, 2 positions at $2,000 each. Move to approve.
Second.
Motion by McNevin, seconded by Vedro. Any discussion on that motion? Hearing none, those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carried. Brings us into new business. Approval of receipts and disbursements. Chair of Finance, Mr. McNevin. Having a motion, was there a second?
Second.
Having a motion by Mr. McNevin, seconded by Mr. Cummings. Any discussion? Hearing none, those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carried. Brings us to B, approval of the Baraboo Early Learning Cooperative BELC contracts for 2015-16.
I'll second that.
Motion by McNevin, seconded by Mehring. Any discussion? A note, I'm going to abstain. My daughter worked at one and is working at another, and I think it best if I just not vote on them.
You don't get involved with your kids.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Note I will abstain. Brings us then to the letter C, approval of the health insurance contract renewal for 2015-16 with Dean Health Plan. Information was provided in your board packet. Can turn to Who wants to handle that from that end of the table?
Well, I can
Mr.
start
Howard?
out, and then Dan Lewison is here, insurance advisor, to take any specific questions. In a nutshell, what the administration is recommending is to accept Dean's offer of a 2.5% premium increase for the HMO plan, a 4% premium increase for the POS plan, for a two-tiered, which would be a single plan and a family plan option for teachers and all staff, with the elimination of the waiver of premium option. And we can take questions on that, or Dan, if you want to add anything.
No, just the waiver of premium option is obviously saving the district a point, and currently the district has one person that is utilizing that right now, but they would, Dean has been willing to basically keep that segment closed, but that person will be able to stay on. They'll close that off, but then after July 1st, nobody new could come onto that. So that's where that point savings comes into play.
And our contribution is pegged to the HMO rate, correct?
Correct.
So if somebody stays in the point of service, not only will there be a slight increase, but then there'll be an increase above and beyond what the HMO rate is.
Exactly.
Okay.
Was there any migration from POS to the HMO?
Last year?
Yes.
Lots.
Okay.
We're still about, what, 110 guys? I think it's about 110 still on point of service probably, give or take. But there was over 100 that moved over the HMO last year.
Okay.
Just a quick comment, I had been asked to follow up on this employee plus one, and I wanted to commend Craig for the research that he did. I looked at what the differentials would be, and they seem to be negligible one way or another. So I'm comfortable that we have done our due diligence in trying to look at what that might be, but the differential is so insignificant compared to just the family plan that it really doesn't make any difference.
Why do you have so many change, sir? Why do you have so many change?
From the point of service to the HMO, because the district pegged the contribution off the HMO last year.
So that cheap.
So in other words, Ed, there's two rates. There's the HMO rate, which was here, and then the point of service that allows you to choose wherever you go was a much higher premium. And the district said, well, wait a minute, 88% of the employees are going to Dean, but the district was paying for 60 or 70% of them to have the higher ability to go anywhere else. So in other words, we're paying for a benefit that wasn't being used. I think somebody used the analogy, which I thought was kind of interesting, that it's like buying a truck with four-wheel drive and never taking it off the street, and never putting it in four-wheel drive. Was that yours, Peter?
I'll appreciate it.
Yeah, so, you know, they kind of put it.
My one automotive analogy.
So what we said is 88% of the people are using Dean doctors. So what we'll do is we'll pay for the HMO rate. If you want the ability to go somewhere else, you can still retain that ability, but you then have to pay for that ability to go somewhere else. And a lot of people just said, well, wait a minute, my doctor's already in the network. I don't need to pay to go to some other doctor that I'm not going to. So that's why a lot of them switch, to save themselves money.
I think we'll see a continuation of that. I think as people begin to see that the services that the vast numbers of our employees are receiving are being met and met well, that again is word of mouth. Word of mouth is the most powerful communicator. I meant to say that to Nikki too.
Any other questions? If not, I'd entertain a motion.
Move to approve.
I got the move, I didn't get the second. Having a motion by McNevin, seconded by Cummings. Any other questions? Hearing none, those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carried. Being informed through Bluetooth capabilities in my left ear, we are asking to table D and E. I would thus entertain a motion to table D and E.
We're still refining some details on that, so we want to give you time to review those agreements.
No, you want to shorten the meeting, but I understand.
Did you table F, G, and H?
Second? You got a second?
Who was the first? Sean?
I didn't, but I can.
I'll second or first or?
All right, motion by Cummings, seconded by Mearing, to table D and E. Brings it back at the next meeting. Those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed. Tabled. Brings us to F, approval of the dental insurance contract renewal with Delta Dental for 2015-16.
So what Delta Dental came through with was a 9% premium increase, which sounds like and is a significant increase, obviously. One thing that number doesn't show in and of itself is that our loss ratio was over 100% for the second year in a row, meaning that the number of premiums we paid in for 2 years in a row was less than the amount that they paid out in premiums. So basically, they've lost money on us 2 years in a row. And so in a sense, a 9% premium increase, while still difficult to swallow, almost makes some sense, and I'll pass it over to Dan.
Yeah, I mean, they're basically at a point where now the rates should be structured where they should be, I think, going forward, and we're hoping that, according to the rep that we deal with, they're hoping that now we'll start to see the more normal 2 to 4% increases, which is typically what we see in dental, so.
Is that because we have, our community of people using this, our younger population with orthodontic work and other kinds of dental work?
I don't know if it's that so much as that when the Delta wrote the policy, gave us the rates that they did, obviously they came in a little hot, but we're still under what you guys, I believe, are close to what you were paying with WEA, so that was probably more of it. We got quite a detailed report on all the utilization and all that stuff that went into it, into the rate calculations that Jeff and Craig both have.
Well, we must have a high usage then across the population, because dental insurance companies never lose money, ever.
Right, that's very true. They don't.
How much does a single payer, a single person, pay for a month for their dental? Approximately.
It depends on the employee group. For the teacher population, a single individual pays 0, the district pays 100%. For administrators, I forget, is it $30 or $35 that we pay, regardless of the plan, family or single, and then the district?
The district pays $30.
Oh, the district pays $30, thank you, and then the individual picks up the rest. So it really varies across the groups.
So a 9% increase.
We budgeted for an 8% increase, and what did we
How much is
we
9%?
calculate that at? We said
17?
Yeah.
17,000?
'Cause I think
It's
we
an
had budgeted about
approximation,
15.
but we ran some numbers, and we think somewhere around 17,000 district cost.
And we budgeted for 8.
Yeah, but, dental insurance shouldn't be going up. You've got the biggest nut to crack in health insurance, and you've got that at 2.5%. I would think that you could take a look at the dental plan and say, wait a minute, there's no reason why we should be absorbing a 9% increase in dental.
Are you suggesting we get bids?
Well, I'm suggesting you look at, it's a plan design issue. For a dental insurance company to pay out over 109% over what they collect in premiums is almost unheard of in the industry. They typically have caps, limits, and they're only gonna pay X amount of this, they're only gonna pay that amount, aggregate is this much, and they've got it completely designed so that they don't ever lose money.
They have it
So for them to
capped
come
at-
back and say that we've spent 109% of what we collected, to me is unheard of. That must mean that we've got limits and caps that are quite high or excessive compared to what the premium is.
It's $1,000 per person, I think.
And
isn't
Sean,
it?
I'm not sure, I
Per year.
don't know off the top of my head, it's 109, but it's 100 and something.
107.
107, thank you.
But for us to
Right.
take a 9% increase. I just think that 17,000 could be better spent elsewhere.
So what's the solution with that?
Well, the solution is you have to look at a plan modification. You have to say, well, then cap it at, something else. If you look inside of the plan details, what is being covered that traditionally isn't covered by dental insurance companies? Is there a high cost of crowns? Is there a high cost of orthodontia that typically isn't covered?
Or there's a cap on it?
It's a pretty basic plan, isn't it, Dan?
Yeah, it's nothing special.
No.
But
I'm
again,
paying
it's
more
more
out of
of the
pocket now than
costs to come
ever
back
for
with
dental.
Modifications to try to save that 9%, we can try. you know.
Well, we're scratching through every line item of the budget. I mean, to the fellow board members, I mean, we're looking at cutting just about every single place possible to sort of sit back and just take a $17,000 hit when you've got the opportunity to make some type of modification. I think it's noteworthy to look at.
Let's see what they can come up with.
We don't have to make a decision, right?
We
What's
do
our-
not, it will modify, it's, obviously, we can be flexible. It will modify our plan on the open enrollment. Our plan initially was to, I believe it was April 20th through May 20th to have an open enrollment for health and dental. We can just have the open enrollment for health be that, and then the open enrollment for dental will be later than that. So it'll just be a matter of communicating with our employees, and then in terms of the payroll, summer deductions, it could create some just a little bit of work there, but we can definitely make it work.
We'll have to make some retroactive changes because we may not be able to.
Well, is it feasible to
Finalize.
table it, come back in 2 weeks, have an answer in 2 weeks, make a decision in 2 weeks?
No problem.
That'd be fine.
Motion table?
Sure.
Second. And a motion
Second.
table by Mr. McNevin, seconded by Mr. Cummings. Those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Table for the next meeting as well. Brings us then to G, discussion and the approval of the high school parking lot. Jeff, Dan, Jen, who's gonna?
I'll kick it off. Provided a memo late last week regarding high school parking lot, among other projects that are going on, so I appreciate you reading through my 5-page memo. The first thing we need to really discuss before we can go on and start looking at the different projects that we're hoping to possibly gain approval on tonight is the high school parking lot. And Jen Mason is with us from C.G. Schmidt, and she's going to go through in much better detail than I could the 3 options that we have for the parking lot. So.
Hi, happy to be here tonight. I'm even happier to get started on the project. That's actually more exciting. So Dan called me, and Dan, and this is Scott from Point Beginning, he's a civil engineer, you might remember him from last meeting. We worked long trying to find a solution that makes sense. After the last board meeting, when option 1 just didn't seem like the best option at this time. So I'm gonna start, if I can get this to pay attention to me. This is where we're at right now, and this is actually looking on the west side of the parking lot looking south. So you can see the condition of what the parking lot's at now. And the reason it gets here is because between winter at Baraboo High School and spring and summer in Baraboo High School, what happens is that you have your 3 layers, you have your subgrade, you have your gravel base, and then you have your run course. And cracks get into that, as cracks develop in the pavement, water will get into the subgrade. And the soil we have here in this area, the water just sits there. So that as it gets warmer, it just starts to heave, and then it cracks the pavement. So then when cars roll over it, you get potholes because it's crushing what really isn't there anymore. And then over time, this happens over and over again. And in this case, it's happened for 50 years. So that's why the parking lot is where it's at today. I don't know if you want to elaborate any more.
Yep. No, well.
Did I mention my thesis is in asphalt pavement? So this is where we're at right now. As you look at this chart, as you move towards the right, you're losing the useful life of that pavement, and that's where we're at. If we have any useful life left, it's not much at all, maybe days at this point. So you can see, and this is from Purdue University, that, and this is pretty common, that when you're at the beginning of the pavement's life, and pavements have a long life cycle, you can do maintenance at a much more affordable price, where we're at the point where the pavement is so old, you do have to spend the money to fix it the right way and then get that life out of it so that you're just doing maintenance at the lower cost over time and you have a better pavement for a longer period of time. But we're at that point now where we're actually paying some money to get this fixed and where it needs to be. So there's 3 options now, and we looked at 5. Well, now we're back to the same old 3 that we talked to you about last time. One is the option that's in the per contract documents, and that's with the bioretention ponds, and that's with the complete removal of the subgrade. And the bioretention ponds are necessitated by opening up that subgrade, letting it see the light of day. And in Point Beginning's defense, when they budgeted this project, this is it really is a great solution. There will be nothing wrong with this pavement if you choose option 1. And in their defense, they use state rates to budget it, but the bid environment has changed over time now, and we're finding it too in all of our projects, that people just aren't as hungry and the bids aren't as competitive as they've been in the years past, now that work is picking up. So in their defense, great solution, but maybe too costly right now. And option 2 is to pulverize in place, which is what I really want to focus on tonight. And then option 3, which isn't a very good option at all, to be perfectly honest, is to mill and overlay. It is an option, but not a good one. So option 1, you've seen this before. The earthwork to be done by Bloom Excavating, paving by Gasser, and then there's a contingency, and there's fee, and there's insurance. The contingency is in case we see anything unforeseen, if there's pipes underneath the pavement, if there's just terrible subgrade that we couldn't have ever anticipated. You can only put so many holes in the ground, get an idea of what that subgrade looks like, but you're never really sure. I mean, even at East Elementary, we found a pipe that we didn't know was there, only because we hired on Terrytown Plumbing, and he was in the know. He knew that there's a pipe under there that we would have found.
He stuck it there.
Yeah. He's a fun character, I like him. Everybody so far. No, we have great partners here. Bloom and Gasser have been involved in this, all week with Dan, and really coming up with some great ideas and really, working with all of us to just find a really good solution. Getting there. So why would we do option 1? It's fully engineered and stamped. Far less maintenance over time, which gives you the lowest life cycle cost. Since you're not doing much maintenance, you're not spending much money on it, so over time, this pavement costs the least, even though you have the higher initial cost. It's a preventive measure. It's not a repair. It's preventative. You're making sure that this doesn't happen again, at least not in our lifetimes. You have a completely new subgrade, and that prevents that freeze-thaw damage, especially when you have the water flowing to a bioretention pond and away from that subgrade, to make sure it doesn't sit there and heave. And then you have the longest life expectancy for this option. But there's other good options too. And that's pulverize it in place. So in this option, we would take away all the curbs, pulverize all that pavement in place. Bloom again would be doing that work. And then we have a 6-inch stone allowance. So we find over time that gravel base has been deteriorating, because it does. Just over time from being driven on, it's a natural material and it just tends to turn into dust in spots. We're going to substitute some 6-inch stone where the spots are kind of low. And then again, the paving will be done by Gasser. Now you may notice, the last time we presented these amounts, it was about $161,000 for the pavement. They offer, because fuel prices have decreased and material prices have decreased, they actually offer to reduce their price, which in all the years I've been project managing, I've never seen a subcontractor, before they get a contract, to reduce their price for me. So they're really trying to make this work. And then again, curb and gutters by Parisi. And then the contingency is a little bit less, but again, covers the same things. The allowance, I want everybody to pay attention to too. If we don't use a 6-inch stone allowance on the whole parking lot, we'll track that and we give that back to the school district. So we'll track that in. The great thing about working for C.G. Schmidt, after working for other firms in the state and out of state, is that they're so transparent. So we'll keep very close records of all of that stone that comes in. We'll show anybody who wants to ask. Well, not everybody off the street, but if you guys wanted to know what we spent, we'll show you and then we give the money back if we don't use it. Same with contingency, we give that money back. So if we don't use a lot of that, you'll see a lot of that money will come back. So this is what that pavement section would look like. You have your subgrade, which never sees the light of day, and then we're gonna have that 6-inch base, uniform throughout, but it changes over the parking lot as it's needed. And then the run course on top. So you get a really great parking lot, as shown by the section code. You're into that kind of thing like I am. So why do we do this? You got a revised grading plan, which pays close attention to the tie-in points, and I'll show you that in a minute. And you get that stone allowance, and you know that you're gonna get something consistent across that parking lot. It's gonna raise it overall to just improve the flow. And anything we don't use, you get back. There's, again, reduced maintenance over time, so you're not spending as much money to take care of this pavement once it's repaired. It's preventative. Again, it's not just a repair. It's making sure that you don't run into this issue too soon, where you're spending so much money over the years trying to fix, and fix. It drains to the existing sewer, so that's the best part of this option, that there is no bioretention pond. We verified it with the Wisconsin
DNR, and as long as we don't disturb an acre, which we're not even close, that subgrade never sees the sun. You can use the existing sewer that's been working all this time, so we don't have to spend the money on the bioretention pond. You have a longer life expectancy than a repair and lower cost. And then option one. So this is a new grading plan that Quinn McGinning's put together for us. And you'll see I drew arrows where the water is flowing, which is very similar to what it is doing now. And then on the bottom, you see the 2 storm sewers highlighted in orange. So it's, again, using the same infrastructure that we have in place. And then option 3 is milling and overlay. It's the lowest cost. It's really just putting a thin layer on top of that. So it's just like a Band-Aid really over the top. So why would I do this? Let's see. I would drain to the existing sewer and I have the lowest cost. This is the only option, and I use that term loosely, option, that has a lot fewer reasons to do it and a lot more reasons not to do it. And some of these reasons are, the repair can cause damage to the subgrade. The miller is a machine, and it can get into that subgrade. Because there's gonna be spots, like you saw in the first picture, in the parking lot you have now, that where it's gonna dig, and it doesn't discriminate, so if there's nothing for it to dig, it's gonna keep the same digging depth. It's gonna tear up everything underneath it, so there's really no way to kind of control that, whereas in option 2, we can. You're gonna have to repeatedly maintain this, so you have to keep doing this fix over and over and over again. So it has the highest life cycle cost, because and you gotta find that money over time to constantly repair using this option. Those repair costs increase each year, so that those things together is just constantly compounding. You have the highest life cycle cost. This is not preventative, it's just a fix. It has the shortest life expectancy. And you have reflective cracks. I mean, this thing can fail within a year. It can last 3 to 5 years, or it could fail in a year. It's really kind of an unknown. But at a minimum, you're gonna get reflective cracks within a year. And what's a reflective crack? So glad you asked. It's basically a crack in the subgrade, and you'll see this like in a driveway. If you have an asphalt driveway, you'll get a crack. It doesn't go anywhere. You can seal it and put a thin layer on top of it, but it's gonna mirror right back up, and you're gonna see them again in a year. So it's gonna look exactly the same in a year. And that'd be difficult for me to explain what you do here. Well, sorry, it looks the same as it did last year. I apologize. So that's my little dissertation committee thesis. Do you have any questions? Yeah.
I don't know if you can answer it or not, but do we have enough lighting in the south end of the parking lot?
Jeff mentioned this when we were walking in tonight. It's definitely something I could look into. I'm sure they did a illumination study. And
I
they
thought
probably
I
had
looked in that print and it didn't show any lights down there, but then when I drove in tonight, I see there are 2 lights way down there, isn't there?
Right, and I saw a street light right outside the entrance as well.
There's 4 light poles in the parking lot. Those 4 light poles will just move from an existing island to in between a row because the islands are coming out. So lights will move 10 feet or, one direction or the other, again, depending on where the parking lot is. But the 4 lights that are in the parking lot are remaining.
So who's moving the lights?
That's your electrician, H&H Electric.
Okay, but I didn't see any money in there for that, so how is that?
That's already in the base bid, because we're gonna
Okay.
do that no matter what option
Okay.
you choose.
And the linings and everything's in there too then?
Oh, sorry.
The linings, are doing the lines for the stalls?
Oh, right, that comes with the paving.
School board's gonna do that, Gary.
Volunteers. Shh. We write our name on a spot too.
What I need is essentially the presentation that you just made to our community. So when they equate the word parking lot and $375,000.
At the most, they'll give you your contingency and your allowance.
No, I understand, it's not 817, but it's not what someone might say, it's a parking lot. I mean, we've got all these big issues we're trying to deal with, it's a parking lot. So I appreciate the presentation and I understand it. And I'm just gonna need to be able to say to someone who comes up to me and says it's a parking lot.
Take a picture of the slide and you can show them on your phone, because that slide.
I think if you look at what Point of Beginning and Bloom and Gasser did with back here, I'm confident that they'll do just as nice of a job out here, so, I mean, our track turned out quite well.
Well, absolutely.
And it shows that the right level of investment gives you the right results at the end. Yeah, I like it.
What was our amount, originally that we had allocated?
It was more closely aligned with option 3, but I think that was prior to getting in and fully vetting what was going on, so.
Right, they did soil borings and just found that that subgrade was just not adequate, it's very poor.
I make a motion to go with option number 2.
Oh, I have a question before we get to that, though.
But I'll second his motion.
Okay, we have a motion.
Well, I'm still
and a
gonna
second.
discuss option 1, so, not that I wanna go with option, it's very cost prohibitive, but you go in there and in your slides, you talk about life cycle costs. And what do we have, I know many times this stuff is theoretical, but do we have those life cycle costs?
I tried to get it out of these engineer types and they wouldn't. in the beginning.
Well, I'm an engineer type.
I'm an engineer type too.
Yeah, and again, that's why.
You guys should meet after the meeting then.
I know, but what does that mean? What does it say? Well, this is gonna have a life cycle cost of 1 and a life cycle cost of 2. And obviously, we're talking about a number for today, but what is that number going to be
That's
down?
fair, I mean, you wanna know what you're paying, what you're getting, you know, what you're paying for.
Yeah.
It's Scott can probably explain
Yeah,
it better.
and I think, you know, from option 1 to option 2, the middle option,
Yeah.
you know, the big difference you're seeing in those two is probably when Jen talked about the freeze thaw. You know, in option 2, in option 1, we had a full 24 inches of granule base that would drain
Yeah.
and get the water to the storm sewer and out. In option 2 now, we've shrunk that middle layer, so there's gonna be anywhere from 1 foot to maybe 1.5 foot, because we're raising some of the parking lot. So the one thing, I guess, maybe, you know, Dan could maybe speak to the maintenance cost. I would guess no matter what option you're gonna go with, you're gonna have some reflective cracking, and then you're gonna have to seal and overcoat and restripe. I think in both these options now, that blacktop surface will last, you know, a lot longer than if you went with just the we'll call it the mill and overlay. And just to maybe explain those two quickly. You know, I think when, you know, over the years, back when we got engaged with the track, we talked about the parking lot. And I think before really looking at it, I think everybody thought you could mill, typically what an asphalt company will do is they'll mill off the first couple of inches, and then they'll pave over the top. That is in such poor shape that the milling machine can't grab it, so it starts to break down. So that is really why that mill and overlay is not an option. So with the pulverizing, they're gonna come in, they're gonna grab that 4 inches of blacktop existing. They're probably gonna cut into the gravel a little bit, a couple of 2-3 inches, and they're gonna grind it all up, spit it out the back, and then add gravel on top of that.
So that you have what's more typical to what you'd see in like a heavy roadway. That's
You're gonna
about-
have you know, the 10 inches of gravel that's there, you're gonna have the ground up blacktop, and then we're gonna add gravel in spots. Now, the disadvantage to that middle option is that along the building, you can't raise the grade. You know, so there's gonna be maybe some areas there that don't quite have the full 1.5 foot of base. You might be down to your 10, 12 inches again. And then some of your tie-ins by the roads, you won't quite have that thickness. But overall, I think it's a really, really good middle point. But I guess, you know, to talk about, you know, yearly expenses or annual expenses and how much you know, boy, that's pretty tough to, I think this blacktop in both options, the upper two, the number 1 option is obviously gonna last the longest before you'll have pavement redo. It's pretty hard for us to give you an exact, is it gonna be 6 months or 6 years or 10 years or 15 before you really start to see some asphalt failing, and that's difficult to say.
I would just ask that the major utilization areas, which obviously are in front of this area, the school, that be a priority to get right. Because I heard you say, you know, there might be some challenges. I would like to make sure that's right, because that's where the most traffic comes in and out.
Yeah, there's tie-in points at the corner that they pay close attention to, and then that southwest side, for that reason, because those are the ones that deteriorate first. Now, your bus lane was done about the 90s, according to Gasser, and that's lasted this long, and it's in great shape. So that's really what you can expect.
Yeah, and I would envision that, you know, everything will be ground up, pulverized. We'll add gravel to get it up to the grades that we've got designed. And then the whole parking lot will be proof rolled, you know, to look for soft spots. And if there are soft spots, we'll have to undercut. And maybe that's where some of that breaker run may be used, or additional gravel would be used.
What's
So,
the timing on a project like this? How long does it take to complete?
You know better.
You know, I think, you know, 4 days. Shoot, you could probably, if you really went at it, that could probably be done in 30 days. But I would guess that it probably happened over the course of.
You gotta do it faster than that.
30
That'll be a hell of a lot faster.
30 days to do the parking lot?
That slide again, Jen?
Which one?
The one with the 6-inch.
Oh, sure.
Well, you can picture, I guess I'm just throwing out and trying to be, you know, I guess maybe it's a better construction guess, but you gotta pull out your curves, you gotta pulverize the blacktop, you gotta regrade it, and repave it. I think repaving it's probably maybe 3-4 days there. Probably.
3-4 days.
But all your curbs and sidewalks are coming out, they gotta be reformed, you got the grading and pulverizing and there's a combination.
Yeah.
Basically,
Well, after about 5-6 days, it's gonna get awful loud. If people are, people start going, hey, what's going on? Why is it taking so long? That's when the calls start coming in. When
and
everybody gets that
better
we're
question
repaving
for,
it, but
you know,
30 days, holy crap.
But this, on these, the number 2 option there is still, like in the township I'm in, on town board, they're doing a more intense and more asphalt, more base than we do on our town roads. Just that's a number, on 2.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you guys had talked to Dan there, and you had talked with the professional road builders, and then they recommend 2.
Right.
He said 1 was good, but it's excessive for.
They're wholeheartedly behind 2, yes.
Yeah. And if you, it's gonna cost a little maintenance on it, but if you run this, what is it, 378,000, run it over 40 years or so like this, with the maintenance in there, it doesn't really stay, but it's something's gonna last a while. And I don't know if the school's gonna be here in another 50-some years, so we won't be.
Oh, no, the way this meeting's going, we might be.
Okay, having a motion and a second, any further discussions on the motion that was presented? Hearing none, those in favor of the motion as presented for $378,482 for Gasser and Bloom for high school parking lot noted as option number 2, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We do appreciate you sticking around for 2 1/2
It's
hours.
I'm a teacher's daughter, I've been hearing this for like 40 years.
Okay, it brings us then to H, which is the referendum projects, and there needs to be some clarification in regards to the roofing, which I'm going to turn it over to Jeff and.
Yep, and just to back up for a second, on the high school parking lot, just as a reminder, we've talked about this prior, and we've talked about this at BG&T committee meetings. The funding for that project is going to come from both our non-referendum borrowing funds and the referendum borrowing funds. So when I'm talking about the dollars we have left to address some of these other things, it's really taking both pots of money and meshing them together a bit to look at how we're funding the rest of these items. So in terms of non-referendum funds, at the last BG&T committee meeting, I went through basically the breakdown, what we've already done, what we're doing this summer, and the surplus comes in at about $343,000. That's how much in dollars we have left from those non-referendum funds. So within your memo, you'll see that Dan and I, as well as the administrative team, have got together and looked at some of the other projects that need to be addressed through that funding. And that's those 4 items that you would see on pages 2 and 3 within your memorandum, and I'll just read them off. Number 1, add a sidewalk to the main entrance at Jack Young Middle School. That has a price tag on it of $40,000, and that would be completed in June of 16. Number 2, repair the foundation at Jack Young Middle School to address the switch gear, which has a price tag of roughly $50,000, some are of 15, and again, these prices are approximate. Really what we're doing tonight, we'd be approving the projects, not the bids. We'd come back with exact numbers later on. Number 3, complete a steam trap rebuild at the high school, $21,000. That would be completed in the fall of 2015. And number 4, replace the carpet in the GLW IMC, price tag of $15,000, and that would be completed in June of 2016. So again, what we're looking for is just an approval to move forward with these projects and put them out to bid to gain more insight into actual cost. At this point, does anyone have any questions on these 4 projects? Dan's here. I'm sure he will be better equipped to answer your questions than I am, but I'm happy to try.
Gary, that goes back to our conversation
Right.
today. Those 4 projects total $82,000 with the $6,000 that were under. And as you noted, some of those would not take place until next summer. So it would give us an opportunity to hold those funds to make sure that we don't run over with any
Okay,
contingencies.
but we also had some discussion on the, going back to the adhered roofs, and also, Dan, there's another, what's the other project that was big important, the roof centers?
Phone PA system.
Yeah.
Yep.
I would refer to Matt on the phone PA.
Well, what, I don't know, I've been
From a
talking.
roof standpoint, we've talked about roofs before. Originally, with the referendum, we were gonna go to fully adhered, basically just no stone that's on top of and that's, if you have an option, that would be the first preferred method. It's a little bit more expensive, by $110,000. There's nothing wrong with ballasted. It's just that, the stones do break down. You got the same thing like with your asphalt parking lot. You got water, you got ice up there, you got the freeze and thaw. We have a lot of equipment on the roof, so we have to have our maintenance guys go up on the roof. So if those stones crack or whatever, and they break, they get sharp edges, someone walks on them, you poke a hole in it, that's not warranted. So fully adhered would be the preferred method. That was the original intent of our referendum, the way we had it scoped. So we did go with ballasted, just to try to save a little bit of money if we were gonna go over budget, because again, it's an acceptable option. But if we're reducing the parking lot scale, I would prefer to have the fully adhered. And that's really why we're, asking for that.
And at this point, we can still switch our order, and it's not a penalty or problem?
Nope.
As I was talking to Crystal and stuff like, at first, if there's, on our overages, this is in the non-referendum borrowing. This is where it's coming from. Basically, Jeff said it was mixed.
Right.
But basically, with the parking lot at our option 2, it brings us almost right up to the end of our referendum money. Now, we still have some left in the non-referendum borrowing.
88.
Pardon me?
It's,
88,000?
Well,
what did I
no,
say,
what-
82,000.
If that's.
With those 4 projects
If it's
that
4
were
projects.
deferred.
But I was
yeah.
also talking to Crystal, while some of these projects aren't till next spring, it might be better not to designate that money to them at this time, because over the course of the last 10 years, every time you get into a building or something, once in a while, you're gonna find a surprise in there. So we have that there. It'd be nice to get these projects done, but we should probably only designate the ones that we need done first. And
Well, the 2 that would need to be done right away, correct me if I'm wrong, are the PA phone system that would be done at the time that we do all
Right.
of the work in the offices across the district. And,
The roof.
I defer to Dan on the roof. That's a board decision. It's cheaper to go with the ballasted, but like he said, there are risks associated with that.
In terms of the non-referendum funds, something to keep in mind is those dollars have to be expended by July 1st of next year. So in terms of looking at the foundation at Jack Young Middle School to address that switchgear, which we've talked about, pushing that to next summer, you don't have time. You don't have the time to make that happen.
But you could do the carpet, you could do the steam traps, and you could do the sidewalk.
Absolutely.
Push those off like Gary's suggesting.
Yeah.
Yeah,
which
everything
is-
that needs to be.
Yep.
Like this, like that's.
$86,000, $76,000.
Right.
Right.
But you're getting everything, that switcher in JMS is gonna be the whole.
Well, that's major safety issue.
Right, that's gonna be dealt with.
Yes.
And I would agree, if we do have the funding, to go with the fully secured roofs rather than the ballast, because unlike the parking lot, it's above our heads. Better to have that secure and safe. And number one, protect the building.
So
Well,
just-
we talked about this before, and I will vote to approve these projects as long as we're not proving to do them. Because you'll never convince me in 100 years that that sidewalk at the Jack Young Middle School is worth $40,000. Because if it's worth $40,000 to put that sidewalk in, I'll resign from the board and I'll do it myself and I'll make about $35,000.
And Dan, correct me if I'm wrong,
Okay.
is that 40,000?
Hey, can we vote on that offer?
It's something I want to speak to on that in all seriousness, if I can try. That sidewalk pricing is based off of an MSA study that was done a number of years ago, and we're finding that a lot of those are coming in under those budgeted amounts. So don't quit the board quite yet, because that cost may come in quite a bit cheaper.
But then we'll come up to the board before they're approved, right?
Right, I guess I would just suggest if we want to delay the sidewalk and the steam trap and the carpet at GLW, we just delay approving this altogether. We approve the foundation, and then we move on and look at these referendum pieces that we still need to look at.
And we'll have running thing, because Jen's gonna save us thousands of dollars over, she did, by,
The sidewalk would be nice. It'd be nice just to ask Parisi what it would cost. They're gonna be here in town pouring curb.
Yeah.
All
and their
over here.
Outside was 27,000, so I mean, you're looking at 100 feet up
I
there.
mean, you got somebody pouring all that sidewalk that the cities gave us, thanks, Mr. Mayor, down there.
Right.
So to have they're already mobilized in the community. That little patch can't cost that.
$10 grand.
$5,000 or $6,000.
So we may want to approve that project just due to the fact that they're going to be here rather than delay and have them come back. But I would defer to the board on what they would want to do.
Well, I might suggest that Parisi's, that's fine. But I think Mike Victor, who does excellent concrete work, and I think he's donated some time to the school already. Maybe that's an option that he might donate some time to that sidewalk. I mean, I know it's not gonna cost no $10,000.
No.
But, or especially 40. But I mean, it might be an option to talk to Mike
Probably had a railing.
and see, pardon?
I said it probably had a railing on it in the design.
Okay, let's just try to get back to some actionable items here. I entertain a motion to revert back to the fully adhered roofs, which means that the total project would be for Malley Roofing for Abe West and the Baraboo High School. Long Life Roofing would do the east without any alternatives, which would go back to the original bid, which totaled $390,112.
And that's an increase of what?
108.
I will so vote.
Second.
Having a motion and a second, any discussion? Hearing none, those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carried. Then, let's take, just the question is, we can come back to the sidewalk. Let's take a motion for the switcher and the camera server and PA system.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
Now, them were
Carried.
bid out, and who's doing all that? Are we doing some of that in-house? or-
The server is vendor specific, but we're working with others to put together an RFP for the
Done this week.
And that's
system.
throughout the district then, right?
Yes.
We don't actually have a bid on the Jack Young Middle School Foundation work either, do we?
We don't have a bid, that's a price based off that MSA
Right.
study. So that's going to go out to bid as well.
Well, I would,
I'm actually working with Hills Wiring and MSA on the solution for that. I met last week with them, kind of trying to figure out what we can pull.
Well, those three or four items, Jeff, going off a bid, right? That we just talked about. Those
Yes.
items are going off.
Really what we're looking for here is approval of the projects, and then we're going to put them out to bid and come back to you later with those.
those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carried. Entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second?
Those in favor? Aye. Those opposed?